In this world, there's two kinds of people, my friend. Those with loaded guns and those who dig. Broadcasting from a Montana wilderness fortress at the headwaters of the Missouri, this is Matt Christiansen Live.
They announced two charges against Kilmar Abrego Garcia. They also said that he had landed today back in the United States from El Salvador.
It also goes to the narrative that they have been repeating and doubling down on, that Garcia is a criminal.
Wow.
They painted him as a criminal. Now, of course, they are saying we have the evidence to back it up.
Bingo. The question is whether these new facts emerged because there was such political pressure.
You serious?
Do you think that Democrats risk politically playing into the president's hands by focusing on this case?
First of all, I don't know of a single Democrat who defended him.
Look at this fat.
This is a victory for due process. It's a victory for the Constitution.
I doubt it.
Shut up, bitch! Oh, you are fake news.
You sound like a groomer terrorist that need to be deported.
Very fake news.
You America-hating communist pig.
Hell yes!
Great story, compelling and rich.
I've become friends with school shooters.
Oh my God, bro!
All right, America, go to the YouTube right now.
Dude, Matt straight up sucks.
How dare you!
All right, go.
In 5, 4, 3.
I can't do it. We'll do it live. Fuck it, we'll do it live!
Hello and welcome to the show. This is Matt Christiansen Live, a proud duct tape production for Sunday, June 8th, 2025. Thank you for tuning in. Sitting shotgun tonight is our friend Robert, my former Bible study leader. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Last time you were on was the Shiloh Hendricks incident, the great N-word mom episode.
Why don't you have the boss to say it right now again?
Fuck you, nigger.
I don't think we're going to be quite as spicy this time. And to maintain your reputation, I promise I won't press the monkey sounds button again. Except for just that once. That was it. Thank you for being here. I had a guest booked for tonight. I was going to have Robert on regardless, but I had a guest planned. Unfortunately, that guest had to cancel. And so it's just going to be me and Robert going through the weekend of news. But the good news is there's no shortage of news. If I get done in under 3 hours, that is going to be remarkable efficiency, I think. So we'll see if we can do it. But those topics are L.A. just descends into violent riots as ICE conducts arrests and deportation operations. Trump has now deployed the National Guard in L.A. as of, I think, this morning. And Pete Hegseth is saying that Marines at Camp Pendleton are on standby if people don't start behaving. And Maxine Waters is out there daring the National Guard guys to shoot her. So it could be Marine Corps versus Maxine Waters. Like this is, I don't know, a modern battle of Iwo Jima or something like that. Who will raise the flag on L.A.? Maryland Father. You see Maryland Father is back, thankfully. You can rest easily about Kilmar Abrego Garcia. Back from Salvadoran prison because he's now charged with human trafficking by the Justice Department. And my favorite part is the CNN coverage that you heard in the intro there. Well, this does fuel the narrative that he was a criminal who committed criminal acts. Until now, it was just a narrative. It was just a political point people were trying to make. And of course, it sounds like you've got opinions about this. What the hell happened between Elon Musk and Donald Trump this week? Was it some strange strategy? Maybe you're going to make the case for that. I can't wait to hear that. Is Elon on drugs? That's probably my opinion. I think drugs are, I hate to be like the New York Times was right, but I think they might be. I think drugs explain some of this. Did you see, speaking of the New York Times, you see the report that Trump is now selling his Tesla? He's doing the meme. They are quoting an anonymous source in the White House, not Trump himself, but I guess If you're a dealership in the DC area, if you are monitoring, cars.com or whatever, looking for a used car in the DC area, Trump's Tesla. What a cool you're rolling your eyes. I guess you think that's a lame move, but I'm not an electric car guy. I'd like to have that piece of history, though. I'd like to have that car.
Oh, yeah. No, I support that. It's just like we're like watching two 15-year-old girls decide to hate each other, know? So it's a little funny.
Plus, we have several hoax hate stories, big updates in the Jonathan Joss supposed anti-gay murder in San Antonio, the King of the Hill, John Redcorn voice actor guy. His husband, who's a woman, gave a lengthy interview about what happened. And we'll get to that. And speaking of confusing trans relationships, the acts of transgender sexual fraud just will not stop. The national nightmare continues. Multiple instances of fraudulent relations to discuss later in the show. Catch up with your super chats as well. Speaking of, hey, if you enjoy the show, please consider supporting the show. You can do that one time or recurring for as little as $1 a month over on my website, mattchristiansenmedia.com/support. Support for the show not only helps me sustain, but it pays the people who make the show possible as well. There are also perks available for your support. And you can check out the merch store, too. Lots of great designs of T-shirts, mugs, and more available in the merch store. Merch sales, likewise, not only help my operation, but they help the designers who made the merch as well. mattchristiansenmedia.com/shop. You can find both of those links right there on the homepage, mattchristiansenmedia.com. or mattis.gay, if you can't spell my confusing name. And we got to say hello to our friendly listener-owned business for the evening as well. That's our friends over at Western Razor Company. We know we're being lied to on a daily basis by our government, by corporate media, and by razor companies too. Think about it. Their ads used to appeal to your masculinity. Then they took advantage of your sensitivity with aloe strips. They kept adding blades, thinking you wouldn't notice how clogged they get, and the more they changed, the more plastic and disposable they became. The honest truth is those other razor brands are lying to your face, and our friends at Western Razor aren't going to take it anymore. That's why their safety razors are 100% made of 100% metal, rather, made in the U.S. Let me back up. They're 100% metal construction, made in the USA, all right? Not crap parts and not made overseas, and made with integrity. The replacement blades are inexpensive too. So you get a great shave and you'll save money long term because when you buy Western Razor once, it lasts forever. Listeners get a 10% discount on any order when they use promo code MATT10 at checkout. Don't let those other razor brands lie to your face. Go to westernrazor.com, order yours today. Western Razor, the last razor you'll ever need. All the details at mattchristiansenmedia.com/deals. Deals by listeners, for listeners, and there's 1 week left until Father's Day. If you have a smelly dad, there is still time to get him some fine products to freshen up his scent from Hero Soap Company. My signature scents, Frosty Pine Timberline and Leathery Oaky Old West, available in a solid cologne now. Applies very easily, no liquid mess. You can try out these new colognes or any of Hero Soap's other offerings, bar soap, liquid soap, shampoo, conditioner, and more, all made in the USA, with a portion of the proceeds benefiting veterans and first responder charities. 10% off all of it using promo code MCListener at herosoapcompany.com. Promo code MCListener, 10% off at herosoapcompany.com. Hey, one last announcement. Robert, the Bible study is back, but we have a new leader. We're back on Friday nights at 9 Eastern. Reverend David Rogers is now leading the Bible study. We're into season 3. We're reading the letter to the Ephesians. And I know I need your biblical expertise here. How do I pronounce the other E word? I always get it wrong. The term for letter.
Oh, epistle.
Epistle. Epistle. Epistle?
Yeah, epistle, like a letter. Yeah.
Okay. The letter to the Ephesians. I'm going with that. Live on Zoom, 9 p.m. on Fridays. Anybody can join. You can listen passively. You can participate actively. It is a discussion available to you. If that interests you, all the information on my Bible study page, linked on my homepage, mattchristiansenmedia.com. All right. On Wednesday, Robert, Joshy Boy and I were discussing the murder of, the alleged murder. I'm not sure I believe it was a murder. But what prosecutors and police say is a murder of Jonathan Joss, the King of the Hill John Redcorn voice actor. And that prompted Joshy Boy and I to get into a little bit of a discussion about King of the Hill, the show. Were you a King of the Hill viewer?
I was not, but I did listen to Wednesday night.
Oh, okay. So, you got our thoughts on that and my opinion of it, which I won't go back over. But my opinion is, I guess I will go back over it. It does have great moments, but there's a lot of filler, and mostly the filler is Bobby just taking up a feminine hobby and Hank going, "Whoa," with a horrified reaction. Now, some might say that Hank Hill impression is not very good. I would defend myself by saying it's on the spot. I'm just making fun of King of the Hill. That's all. But listener and emailer Alpha Delta Actual sent me a dub over, a dub on such a bois moment on King of the Hill. And I think this works. You tell me.
Place of birth, New York, New York.
Not the worst. I think that kind of, if they need someone to be the voice of Hank for the revival of the show, send me an email, Mike Judge or whoever's in charge of that. I think I could do it. I'll make King of the Hill great again. Anyway.
I couldn't even tell it was edited.
Yeah, I'll fit right in. All right, well, let's get to the major news of the weekend. And Mexico is attempting to take over the country's largest metropolitan area, and Trump has declared war in response. Now, that headline would barely be an exaggeration, if it would be one at all. Maybe the alternative CNN-style headline would be, a bunch of hardworking migrants have come here in desperation to do jobs Americans won't do, like burning cars and throwing rocks at federal law enforcement. And generally destroying the city. Clearly, we have a bunch of desperate people in this photo who are just in need of a new opportunity at a
California fathers, I assume.
I think there is a Southern California father now. I think that the story has come out. A man who was wrongly deported, but I don't know. Apparently, all the children must be at daycare while these California fathers are out making their viewpoints about the United States known. I saw someone with a very You ever see an observation on X or somewhere, just a YouTube video, someone makes a very astute observation that's very simple, but you're like, yeah, why have I never thought of that? They're waving the flag of Mexico out of their pride for Mexico, of course, or I guess their belief that Mexico is a great country. Why is it so bad to be deported to Mexico if Mexico is such a great country worthy of representing with a flag in the middle of an American city that you're burning or damaging or vandalizing or whatever else?
I mean, if this does not show that this is an invasion, then nothing will. And I mean that in a rather literal sense, like they're waving the Mexican flag, not going back to Mexico, because effectively they're saying Mexico has expanded this far. We're not taking it back.
Kind of, yeah. I know that these aren't people in a military uniform. They're not a foreign army lining up against our army. But isn't it possible for just kind of an undefined mass of people in a less formal way to take over an area on, I think it's fair to say, based on the photo and some of the behavior we're about to witness, hostile terms, even if not like formally declared military terms. These are people, I guess what I'm trying to say is in the description of people just looking for a better life who maybe are having hard times and they've found obstacles in the system that prevent them from, doing the hard work that Robert did to actually become a citizen of this country. Is it so much to ask just to have like a little bit of humility? Like there's not a drop of humility in this photo. And just a little respect would be nice. But
yeah, I mean, I cannot imagine, honestly, this story makes me so mad, more mad than any of the other stories we're going to cover today. Because come on, guys. I mean, you came here because it's great here. Fly the American flag. Like at least as you're looting and destroying the city, like have the decency to fly the American flag.
Right. Steal those Betsy Ross Nikes that they banned when you're at Foot Locker. Be patriotic when you're looting. I like that. That's like a very basic request, and I think it's perfectly fair. But okay, what happened? This all started in the garment district or the fashion district of Los Angeles on Friday.
I'm calling Trump on you, you illegal motherfucker!
LaDonna's sister observed some of these people, made a phone call to Trump about some of the activities in the LA area. And so ICE agents showed up at a clothing store and they started arresting numerous workers inside. And people outside observed this. They started yelling, they started heckling, they started recording videos. They pulled up in a pickup truck with a megaphone and started trying to communicate with the illegal immigrants inside, saying, these are your constitutional rights that you should understand and be aware of, etc. So Homeland Security issued a statement saying that these agents were executing search warrants for people harbored here illegally. Now, I've not seen like independent confirmation of that, but do I have a hard time believing the people they were targeting were in fact illegal immigrants? Throw a rock, as they do in LA. You're going to hit an illegal immigrant. So, okay. ICE arrests 118 illegal aliens, according to the DHS statement over the weekend, including, they say, 5 foreign gang members with violent criminal histories, 5 Southern California fathers, as you were saying. And so it's not just people who were here illegally. These are people with serious criminal records that they're going after as well. But the main business was a store called Ambiance. Kind of an ironic name, considering the ambiance became a little chaotic, but it got tense outside. It got crazy. The store owner locked up the business. There are allegations that the store owner locked ICE agents inside. I'm not sure if that's confirmed. He says they were trying to keep people out. There have been arrests. A labor union leader was arrested for obstructing ICE agents. I would assume that if you could show that he intentionally locked people inside, he would be arrested for some sort of obstruction charge too. And as far as I'm aware, he's not arrested. So maybe that was not correct, but that was an allegation. But of course, it wasn't just the building itself. While the ICE agents, they go to this building, they arrest these illegal aliens inside, they move them out into vans, and as they're departing the scene, taking these people to the federal building with a jail, a detention center, the crowd, the mob, starts obstructing them. And I don't mean just like standing in the way, though some people were, as we'll see. It's violent acts against these ICE agents. Here's some local reporting on the scene at that clothing store Ambiance and the ICE agents attempting to leave that scene.
Earlier this morning, apparently a raid by ICE here at a business called Ambiance. Then a crowd started forming outside the perimeter. They started actually surrounding these buildings.
We have a piece of video. You can see that they've gotten the people and they put them in these vans. It was a very strange sight to see because they started to leave and there were people who were protesting, trying to keep these vans from getting out. And we watched these agents almost as if it was a chase. They got together in the caravan, and we watched as those agencies, or those 3 vans, went to the Roybal Federal Building, where they took the people that they had detained. And that was the second caravan that had gone there.
Speaking of trying to stop the movement of the ICE agents in their vans, did you see the guy who decided he wanted to play chicken with just his hands and feet? You know, he didn't have a car himself.
I saw that clip. I imagine you can't show it like on the show, given what happens.
Oh, I can. I had to blur the moment.
Go ahead then.
Yeah. So, okay. So one of these guys standing in the road, and not only is he just going to stand there like he thinks this is Tiananmen Square or something, he's going to, as the car accelerates or continues down the road, he's going to, I guess not push against it because you can't move a car, but he's going to just keep backpedaling. It looks like he's trying to block in a football play or something. And as you mentioned, it ended up not great for him. He didn't get run over, but kinda. Whoops, that's the rock clip. Let me get the right clip.
Watch as the person in front falls and hits his head on the ground, and that just seemed like it was an injury. But then these agents then moved aside and then immediately took off, and we watched these agents.
Another guy just threw a bike at the car.
Good. Fuck around and find out.
Your level of sympathy for failed offensive tackle ban?
0. Well, 0.1%. Here's my tiny bit of sympathy. These kids, they think that they are in a fantasy and they're going to be heroes and there's no consequences. In fact, they are the good guys and everything will work out in the end because their brains have been destroyed by social media. And so I don't think they realize that they're about to ruin their own lives. That's my like tiny ounce of sympathy. Other than that, no, like you try to stop a car, you get what's coming.
I haven't seen a report on his condition. If he is in a vegetative state for the rest of his life, I mean, first of all, he probably would have been in the custody of the state regardless, either because he's insane or because he's completely worthless. And if not in the custody, a beneficiary of the state. So maybe his life wouldn't have changed that much. But imagine, like, it obviously is a shame in the sense that he completely wasted his life like an idiot had he been run over and died. But let's say he is in a vegetative state for decades on end, and he's just like the mentally absent guy who decided he was going to try to block an ICE car one day because he was going to be the hero on social media, like you were describing.
It's such a shame. It's such a shame. And that's why, like, this is going to sound really terrible, but it's better to break a few eggs now, but be done with the problem than to continue this. Like, I know you'll get to this, but we just need to send in everyone, the army, whoever, stop this now, teach all these kids, this is not a game. We will save lives. National Guard not far enough is maybe the take of the week. But it's not, of course, it's not just people like standing in the way, even if they are very persistently standing in the way as the cars drive down the road. There are people. One of the many important jobs that Americans just won't do, that we need these people here to perform, is throwing rocks at cars as they drive by. I don't have the image handy, but one of those rocks reportedly broke through the windshield of one of these federal law enforcement vehicles, injured one of the federal law enforcement personnel inside, because that's what happens when you encounter rocks at high rates of speed. They inflict serious bodily injury. And Dan Bongino, deputy FBI director, saying, whoever you are, whoever's doing this, you better turn yourself in because we're going to come find you. Obviously, we have to. To your point about stopping, when you are lenient on crime like this, how much license do you give to people to commit this sort of act and cause greater damage going forward? I mean, this is completely insane. The only thing I could think of that's more insane than that is just sitting there and mag dumping with Glocks or an AR as they drive by. There's like 1 degree further that you can go. Absolutely. And the whole intent is there. He's just missing the weapon.
Yeah.
But I will say this on a positive note. It's nice to see real vandals. Like after the Summer of Love, Antifa guys could not have thrown those rocks that well.
This guy's got arm strength.
Yeah, this guy at least is strong. It's like, okay, now we have real vandals. We can apply force against them.
Yeah. Well, we used to apply Hispanic arm power in Major League Baseball. It was properly applied there. We still do, but I don't know, maybe this guy couldn't make it in the minor leagues or wherever his aspirations may have brought him. I agree, though. It was solid throwing form, and the velocity on the rocks, I can't question that. I just have to question the morality of the intent behind the rock tossing. Right. not the physics. The form was good. He didn't look like a pussy while doing it.
Let me see. I had that thought because after all the Antifa videos, that's literally what I thought. I just didn't want to say it. He didn't look like that.
All right. Please loot patriotically. Thank you for throwing your rocks athletically. This is the quality analysis I'm looking for. I appreciate it. There was, speaking of general Antifa pussy behavior, though, there was just, the general vandalism of damaging the federal building. They went to go protest there, riot there. They were attacking federal agents outside that building too. During the night, as we'll get to, they actually deployed fireworks for show. But here's some of the typical Antifa style degeneracy outside the federal building in LA. Now that I don't even like hammering the barricades. Are they planning to drive a car in there and car bomb it, or what? And if you're going to do that, I mean, it's going to take a long time with just a hammer in that. What is the point other than just senseless destruction? Yeah, you see how those traffic barriers outside the federal building are slightly chipped? That was me. I'm sure you're going to get a lot of credit for that.
Yep, big hero right there. But it makes me so mad to see them in broad daylight. Why were they not arrested immediately? Like,
it's because ICE agents were bringing the chaos, as we'll get to.
Oh,
it's all the ICE agents' fault.
Mm-hmm.
As I mentioned, they did add fireworks for effect at night. Oops, wrong clip again. Here we go. Throwing stuff at the car, like random people's cars.
Holy fuck! Holy fucking shit, you guys!
The party was lit, I guess. On Friday night alone, 44 arrests were made for obstruction or vandalism, violence crimes during the riots. These are beyond just the immigration arrests that we were talking about. So, to your question, where in the hell are the police?
Absolutely.
By that, I assume you mean police responsible for that jurisdiction, LAPD, Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department. Reportedly, it took LAPD 2 hours to respond on Friday when this broke out at the Ambiance store. Last night, apparently they did declare the downtown riot illegal. They broke up the crowd, made some arrests. It sounds like on Friday night, the mob had all but encircled the federal building downtown, and LAPD did eventually come by to clear out the mob to allow federal agents to move in and out of the building again. But in general, you still have this, hesitation would be the kind way to put it, outright refusal to assist federal law enforcement in any way, even when it really has nothing to do with immigration. You had the LAPD chief, Jim McDonnell, issuing a statement on Friday. Well, I want to make it clear, LAPD is not involved in civil immigration enforcement. Yeah, fine. I agree that you can't really be coerced into enforcing federal law for them, but that's not what's happening here. You are allowing mobs in your city to obstruct lawful federal law enforcement. The crimes that need policing here are actually totally independent of immigration enforcement. You need to police people for generic run-of-the-mill violence crimes, riot crimes, mob crimes. That has nothing to do with the question of whether someone's in this country legally or not. This is about peace within your city, in your jurisdiction. You're just allowing chaos to rule the day. So that's the answer to your question. They got around to it. But you wonder, I mean, there's a lot to police in LA, okay? This is probably the most pressing thing. There's a lot to police, though. But what was going on? Don't you think that there was a meeting with Karen Bass and the LAPD police chief and all the rest of these people, like, strategizing about how to do this? Well, we can't have the violence, but aren't they kind of right? Do we really want the optics of arresting these people? That's what took hours and days, a stupid meeting by a bunch of idiots.
It was just strategy of how it would look, just like you said. It's like, how do we, like, what is the fine line we want to walk between not seeming completely lawless and not seeming like we support Trump or ICE? So how about we respond, but we do it a little bit late and we sort of don't really respond? Like, they're doing quantum physics over there, trying to figure out just the correct response.
Well, you know who really stepped it up this time is Mayor Karen Bass, because Mayor Karen Bass was not in Africa this time. If you remember back during the fires, hey, the whole city's on fire. Where's Mayor Karen? Oh, she's in Africa celebrating like the Ghana president's inauguration or some nonsense like that. Karen Bass was in LA, and she, among her many statements, has said, or at least implied, it's ICE's fault for provoking this response. And she's saying, again, if she's not saying it outright, it is strongly implied, I stand and Los Angeles stands with illegal immigrants.
We are going to fight for all Angelenos, regardless of when they got here, whether they have papers or not. We are a city of immigrants, and this impacts hundreds of thousands of Angelenos.
Okay, but you're not Angelino if you showed up yesterday illegally. Just like if I go to Guatemala illegally tomorrow and I start working a field and I'm picking those berries very earnestly and diligently because it's a path to a better life for my family. I'm not a Guatemalan. It doesn't matter how hard I worked when I showed. I'm not a Guatemalan. No one would call me that. So to call these people Angelenos is just insane. But
it is. And I mean, it is an outright rejection of American immigration policies. I mean, she's not outright saying it, but it's like, no, yeah, we disregard what the federal government says about who is and is not an American. We're going to do what we think is right.
Governor Gavin Newsom, I would have expected Gavin Newsom to say something half sane, considering his at least widely understood or anticipated presidential ambitions. Mm-hmm. Gavin Newsom says ICE is sowing chaos so they can have an excuse to escalate. And he also says that the move we'll talk about in a moment, Trump deploying the National Guard. Well, that's not necessary because there's no shortage of law enforcement in California. Yeah, I agree. There probably is no shortage of law enforcement. There's a refusal or a hesitation to deploy them. And so if you're Trump, you are put in a position where you have to make that evaluation. You clowns control the police forces, and you're not deploying those police forces for adequate law enforcement. That's the problem. So shortage, I don't think anyone was saying LA is trying as hard as they can, but the mob is just too great. So we got to send people in to help. No, it's a refusal to police. That's the problem. So Gavin Newsom is reverting back to his old ways, I guess. And
to his credit, at least he said never use violence. Honestly, I didn't even expect that much. I would not have been surprised if it was like, fight for your rights or something along those lines.
Well, there was a member of the LA City Council. I should have grabbed the clip. I forget her name, but she said, because ICE has escalated, we must escalate. And implicitly that was, meet them with violence is what she was saying. You mentioned it. You got the LA mayor saying effectively, we don't care what federal law says about immigration or immigration status. We're not going to do that. At some level, even though I think immigration and your status as a citizen or not, or your legal status in this country is a matter for the federal government, of course. But I could understand local political resistance to the federal government generally. We're beyond that even, though. You have members of Congress who themselves are responsible for these laws joining the resistance, effectively. Norma Torres represents a district nearby in suburban LA. She posted a TikTok video telling ICE to get the F out of the city.
ICE, get the fuck out of LA so that order can be restored.
Straight right off the plane. She tending to important business, I guess. But yeah, federal law enforcement, you have oversight over them. But I guess that's what she's doing. She's exercising oversight. Get the fuck out of our city so that order can be restored.
Have we lost all decorum? Like, how can we have a politician post that on TikTok? Like,
it is embarrassing. I've never been a stickler for like, the norms and the rules and the dignity of the office. But I guess the counter to that is it becomes insulting as a citizen when these people have so little respect for the offices they hold at our permission and at our consent. To the point you're making, it comes off as disrespect for us since we are their bosses.
Yeah, no, it does. And she's acting as a politician, although she's just recording on her phone or whatever. Clearly, this is a message coming from that office. If she, dropped the F word or whatever in her home in a private conversation, okay, that's a different story. But that cannot be the level of public discourse that we're having. But I guess it is. And also, in what context do we blame the people trying to enforce the law as creating the violence? That's just so odd.
It is. I mean, we can argue that the law is unjust. We could say the law needs to change, but we hire law enforcement agents as a country to enforce the laws as they exist. Now, I know that's a complicated question because I'll sit here and defend the lawful immigration enforcement that's going on from the federal government. And I will be very critical or highly skeptical of, say, federal firearms law enforcement, which I think are constitutionally two different things. But yeah, you still have to recognize that ultimately when a unjust law is enforced, the authors or creators of that law, I think, are primarily to blame over like the guy who's responsible for making the arrest. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'm talking myself out of it, though, because you are free not to do it. Like, nobody's forced to be an ATF agent. You could just go get a different job. But I don't know.
Yeah, and I can see that if the law was clearly unjust or just invalid, like laws about firearms or something like that. But I guess in this case, it seems to me that clearly this is within the jurisdiction of the federal government. This, by the way, has been the legislation for pretty much the entire history of this nation, that you can't come in here illegally. So I don't know.
Not just this country. That's been a tradition of every country that has ever survived in the history of the world.
Yeah. So I don't know. I guess it just strikes me as odd that all of a sudden it's ICE. It's their fault.
Yeah. I mean, they've been, and yeah, even in recent history, to your point, they've been doing a lot of deporting for a lot of years, and all of a sudden this is a big problem. But anyway, and her premise too, so that order can be restored. You might say that illegals have to be deported so that order can be restored. Like ICE leaving does not. There's a lot of disorder in LA when ICE is absent, as they largely were, or at least they were kind of neutralized in the prior 4 years. Was LA a thriving city of order when border enforcement and immigration enforcement was tamer? I don't think so. It seemed like it got worse, and then the whole thing burned down, like as though God wanted to add an exclamation point. Sorry to anybody who lives in LA. I know every time you talk about places like LA, people are like, not all. We live down here, and I get it. I feel bad for people who are, you've lived there your whole life and you have ties to it and you know how insane it is, but you kind of have to stay there anyway. So I'm not taking shots at sane people in LA, but anyway, back to the insane people in LA. Maxine Waters, the congresswoman from another LA area district. She has this developing routine where there's some sort of perceived federal injustice. She shows up at the relevant federal agency and just shakes her fist outside and demands to be let in. And some security guy says, no, go away. Do you remember this at the Department of Education earlier in the year? Mm-hmm. Okay, that was a great moment. She just, she shows up, she shakes door handles. She went down to this federal building in LA and she was rejected once again.
Hello. Congresswoman Waters. I just came to use my congressional authority to check on baby.
Ma'am, we're lobbying securely now to all visitors.
Excuse me, I need to get in.
Contact our public affairs office.
I need to get in.
Well, good try. How would you rate the strength of that door pull and compared to the rock throwing strength? Was that satisfactory?
Yeah, we're doing pretty good.
Okay.
Strong people on both sides. But what I don't know. What a silly scene. This, she's going to show up and say, I'm going to use my congressional authority. I don't even know. And maybe I'm ignorant of the law in that area. That very well could be the case. But I don't know if there is such an authority.
I've looked it up and they do. I was surprised to learn they do. They do have the legal authority to show up unannounced and just say, it's oversight time, bitches. As far as I'm aware, it hasn't really been exercised very often because, to your point on decorum, we used to kind of have the understanding among different elements of the federal government, like, hey, we would like to come over and do X, Y, and Z. Now, instead of generally being friendly or cooperative with each other, they're treated as an enemy. So you see these ambush tactics, I think, more frequently now than there used to be, probably. But the other thing about Maxine Waters there, unfortunately demonstrating the effectiveness of a very strong wall. You notice how the door closed. She attempted to move beyond the barrier and was unable to. So point proven about walls, Maxine. But that was not Maxine Waters' most embarrassing moment. This was earlier today. I guess she was foiled by the door and the wall. I think this happened afterwards, is the proper chronology here, the order of events. She then goes out, away from wherever she was trying to enter, and as we'll get to, this building is now protected by National Guard soldiers. And she just starts heckling these National Guard troops. And she asks them if they're there to shoot kids or if they're there to shoot her, a sitting member of Congress.
Shoot. Why do you have a gun? What are you going to do? You going to shoot some kid who's afraid of you and run? You going to shoot an elected official? If you shoot me, you better shoot straight. I don't know why you're in my city.
I don't know why you're in my city, she says to Californians in military service in this country and to foreigners with no legal right to be here. Welcome. Please bring more. How upside down, how backward can you possibly? I don't know why you're in my city. Lady, they probably all live there. They're legal citizens of that city itself beyond their extra step of military service to this country. I mean, speaking of being like one step away from mag dumping at the cars driving by, we have members of Congress who are like one step away from burning the flag, spitting on it, doing some of the worst things of, say, like Vietnam era protesting that were always condemned. I know that's only a couple sentences she uttered there. What are you doing here? Are you here to shoot kids? No, they're there to maintain order. That's what the National Guard does. And if you've seen the violence, some violence needs to be stopped. And the only way to stop violence, unfortunately, is with the possibility, dare I say, threat of a response of not just equal violence. This is not a rock war on the street. If you start throwing rocks, you're going to take a bullet. And sorry, if you didn't want someone to take a bullet, you shouldn't have deployed lethal force yourself in the first place. I could talk about just that Maxine Waters clip for probably another hour. I find it so interesting and entertaining for all the wrong reasons.
Yeah, it hits hard. Like I feel for those young men that, you know, they're trying to serve their country, and here there's a congresswoman who's essentially calling them murderers. I mean, like, what is going on through their heads? I feel terrible for them. And then the fake bravery, right? If you're going to shoot me, you better shoot straight. You're only saying that because you know they're not going to shoot you.
Yeah.
Like, let's quit it with this whole act.
Well, and for those National Guard troops, too, I saw people talking about this on X. Now, I don't know a lot of guys in the Guard, but I understand how it operates. There's an emergency, you get called up because these are not active duty soldiers. They're not living, say, like in an army barracks or something. They're just guys from your community, your town, who are called into service when necessary. So you got all these guys who probably had weekend plans, probably had awesome things they were going to do. They get a call early in the morning. Yeah, could you go like stand there and have Maxine Waters heckle you while you hold a gun, but you can't use it? Son of a bitch. This is what I signed up for. Oh man, the amount of discipline and I admire anybody who signs up to serve the country in whatever form you may. But to stand there with a rifle in hand, and I assume they got like the full kit that we can't even have. All right, you got like a full auto, maybe. I don't know what they have. But you got military-grade hardware, and Maxine Waters just standing in front of you. Shoot me. You won't do it, pussy. Shoot me. And they didn't even flinch. They didn't smirk. Not only did they not point their barrels and say, you better shut up right now, bitch, or I'll, whatever. They didn't do anything. Every one of them deserves a Medal of Honor, right? And Trump should do it tomorrow.
Absolutely. And in fact, if he did, I don't know, Trump would be the greatest president ever. Go ahead. I support that.
Some might say it would cheapen the award a little bit. Can we just have like, okay, I'm not saying they deserve the highest military award. Can't we just have like the Medal of Honor LOL equivalent? Can't there just be like the trolling military award equivalent? Something like that. I don't know. Something for levity.
Call it the Maxine Award. Call it like you could have shot Maxine but didn't award.
Just her frowny, jowly face on a star right there on your lapel.
Mm-hmm.
did not heroism and bravery by not shooting Maxine Waters in the face. I don't know how this fits on a uniform. Something like that. Anyway, okay. I can't spend the rest of the show on Maxine. We actually have to talk about the deployment of the National Guard. I kind of buried that lead. Why are those guys standing there? It's because Trump deployed the National Guard to this scene. And why did that happen? Well, this rampant crime, this general hesitation or refusal to stop it, that brought on Trump's move. So he deployed 2,000, as far as I'm aware, California National Guard troops, I believe. I'm not sure which state they come from, but you got National Guard troops in LA today. I imagine California forces, but you might have to fact check me on that. But this morning, the soldiers were seen setting up protections for the federal building in downtown LA, as we just saw with Maxine there. That includes the detention center where these illegal immigrants are being held and where these rioters attacked. And historically, this is an incredibly rare move. By that, I mean the federalization of the National Guard without the request of a governor. Generally speaking, the National Guard is under the command of the state governor. Occasionally, when there is need, a governor will make a request for, say, assistance from the National Guard elsewhere, and the president will facilitate that way. What is very rare historically is the president doing this against the wishes of a governor, without the request of a governor. The last time that happened, the last time federal deployment of the National Guard at all happened was also ironically LA. 1992, the Rodney King riot. The rooftop Koreans needed help. Mm-hmm. So but then Governor of California, Pete Wilson, requested the president do that. So that was at the governor's request. And these additional National Guard troops arrived after state-controlled National Guard forces were already deployed. The last time the National Guard was deployed by a president without state request, like happened here, was Lyndon Johnson in 1965 to protect civil rights marchers in Alabama, the Selma to Montgomery march. Or was it the reverse? I forget. One of those. They were going between those Alabama cities. And so, even though I think we're both in agreement that some boot stomping is clearly needed in LA, we could debate which boot is necessary, but a boot is certainly necessary. Principles of limitations on federal boot stomping are very important. I want to give due credit to that, or consideration to that. Generally, we don't want the federal government deploying military forces for domestic law enforcement. That's generally illegal to do, and it's for very good reason. If you want unaccountable law enforcement, that's how you get it. And that's not to say that I oppose what's happening right now in LA. It's just an understanding of the law and the legal theory here is important. So on what basis is Trump deploying these National Guard troops in LA? Well, there is federal law that gives the president authority to federalize the National Guard under specific circumstances. This is U.S. Code of Armed Services 10 U.S.C. 12406. And there are 3 specific circumstances under which the president can federalize the National Guard. 1, if the U.S. is invaded or in danger of invasion by a foreign nation. Now, you could even argue that point, as you mentioned earlier. Like, we got foreign flags waving on hostile, violent terms, okay? That's not the one Trump is referencing. If there is a rebellion or danger of rebellion against the federal government, and if that's not what we just saw, I don't know what is. It is the mob resistance and obstruction of federal law enforcement. There's also the possibility of federalizing the National Guard if the president is unable with the regular forces to execute the laws of the United States. And that one may also be true. With the scale of this mob and the criminal activity, maybe it was just too much for the ICE and DHS agents who were present there over the weekend. But the one that Trump is citing to authorize the action is rebellion against the authority of the United States. So the question is, does the United States or the federal government have legitimate authority in this matter? And you've brought this up a few times now. On questions of border enforcement and immigration, 100%. Trump is not deploying the National Guard even to police, necessarily, at least for the purpose of policing, say, the rock throwing or looting. Or they're surrounding the federal building there to protect federal law enforcement from conducting lawful federal law enforcement operations. The stuff that's happening in California within California's boundaries, or borders, that still belongs to California to police. These troops are being deployed to assist in constitutionally lawful immigration enforcement. And the federal government has absolute authority in that matter. And if the National Guard is needed to secure those operations, and only those operations, they're not overstepping what they are lawfully allowed to do here, I don't really see the legal problem. And I don't necessarily see this as a philosophical problem either. I mean, I don't like federalized policing of really anything domestic. I want police power in the states. That is the constitutional design for good reason. What we're watching here, this is not domestic law enforcement. We are removing foreign invaders who have no legal right to be here. The federal government must have authority in that matter. That's why the federal government exists, for the collective defense of the states. That's the whole point. But I invite your legal thoughts on that. I know you're a man of legal knowledge. So do you have any, it sounds like you're in favor of the boot, but do you have any hesitation about the boot?
No, so I fully agree with you. I do think that it's very clear that the federal government has no police power. So I do not support the federal government policing any normal crime, if you will. I even think that all the hate laws, hate crimes, I think that those are clearly unconstitutional. They're just taking regular murders and batteries and assaults and federalizing them by calling them, hateful or whatever. So even that I would oppose. This to say, broadly speaking, just like you said, I do not want the feds acting like the police. But yeah, again, I agree with you that in this setting, the feds have exclusive jurisdiction over this matter, and so they need to be able to enforce this. And if the boots on the ground were not sufficient, they should be able to call in more. And I find it from the left, I find it impossible to complain about the current situation when, for example, when Texas was trying to send their own rangers or I don't know who they were sending to the border. If you remember, this was already a couple of years ago, but Texas essentially was trying to police the border, and they were sending Texas officials of some kind. I don't want to misspeak. I don't remember exactly who, but they got in trouble for that, right? And the court stopped that and they said, no, this is the exclusive jurisdiction of the feds. Okay, then you can have it both ways. If this is the exclusive jurisdiction of the feds, now you get more feds.
Yeah, I mean, we are moving. It's a very interesting legal question. I agree with the general principle that local law enforcement, state law enforcement, is not under obligation to assist in federal law enforcement. I don't think you can coerce them to go on your anti-gun raid or go on even your immigration raid necessarily. They are their own police force with their own political leadership, and that's important. Where was I going with this? Lost my train of thought. Totally escapes me.
Oh, but
that
I
sucks
agree with
when
that
that
as
happens. Damn. Okay, you keep talking. It's going to come back to me.
But yeah, I mean, like you said, if the feds cannot compel the local police to enforce the federal law, as they shouldn't, I fully agree with you there, then again, we have to grant the possibility that the feds can send more of their own people.
Yeah, it did come back to me, thankfully. What we're watching is a very interesting and I guess maybe difficult to define legally type of case, because there's a difference between not assisting and obstructing. And what we're watching, of course, is mob obstruction. But at what point, if the local law enforcement refuses to enforce laws that are against such behavior to the effect of obstructing by proxy, it's not LAPD or LA Sheriff's Department out there physically blocking ICE agents. We just have a rowdy mob who likes to do that, and we're going to wink, wink, nudge, nudge, look the other way, maybe even kind of encourage them, some of the LA political leadership. At what point does the political leadership become responsible for the obstruction, and at what point should they be treated as though they were the physical obstructors themselves? That's very difficult to define legally, I would imagine.
Yeah, and I hope we never get there. I mean, I totally hear what you're saying, and I think that you're right. I just hope we never get there where the feds effectively have to go after the local politicians. That's when we have a real crisis in our hands. So no, they might as well just send but the feds, I mean, more people to enforce immigration laws, which is within their purview. I don't see anything wrong with this.
Well, unless you have more thoughts on that, I'm going to take a break here, do a little super chat, and then we'll get into another immigration topic, the Kilmar Abrego Garcia. He's come back home. He's come back home to Maryland, unfortunately, to face federal charges.
I'm so glad. I was so worried.
All right, let's get into a little bit of super chat here. Jonathan Prezios. I tried to warn people about Elon, predicted that this crash out would come. I can't believe that he didn't get his. All right, I'm going to try hard here, Jonathan. He didn't get his enforcement of electric vehicles on the American people. Probably wanted an exception. Okay, so this I gather you're talking about potentially Elon's rumored anger that the new big beautiful bill is not going to give tax breaks and subsidies to electric car companies like Tesla. That's a possible explanation, although even if that was his anger, like he really checked out hard. And I don't think it's just anger about a policy matter that explains it. There's something else going on. VV, you may remember VV from our Bible study.
Mm-hmm.
Your best guest ever. Hi, Robert. So still a fan, VV is. Thank you, VV. Esoterica Unbound, live in the Eastern time zone. I'm getting too old for this hangout for 3 hours on a school night. So I'll just say up front, I'm on Team Elon. Trump gets the made-to-order chance to play the adult, but goes 8th grader instead. But I'm sorry, I have the rim shot available for you. I don't have to do it. Anyway, yeah, we'll get into this is a very. Have you ever been completely on like one person's side of a disagreement, but you hate the behavior and the tactics so much that you have to reject them?
Yes, especially in my line of work as an attorney. Like sometimes I'd be like, you are technically correct, but I hate you.
That's how I feel about Elon Musk here. Like, I don't like the big beautiful bill. I don't like electing Republicans to Congress and continuing Democrat spending with the promise that like we have to spend this now so that we can save later and all this bullshit. I fully understand, especially if you spent months trying to cut back on federal waste only to see a spending bill come out that really implements none of the stuff that you even identified. I fully understand that frustration, and I would side with Elon on that dispute. I know a lot of people are defending Trump's spending bill for reasons X, Y, and Z. You know, that's fine. Oh, I forgot. Production thing. Thank you, Tim. I forgot. I usually am in the Discord so that Tim can tell me if I have production problems, but I stupidly forgot to join the live room, you know, so the duct tape rolls on. Anyway, Tim has Signal as a backup and sent me a message. I missed one from Colton Regal. I don't see one from Colton Regal. So maybe it didn't feed to my system properly, and I'll go back and look in YouTube. So thanks for letting me know. Anyway, back to the point. Yeah, it's very frustrating experience, as you're talking about, to agree with someone on the points and hate their conduct so much that you have to, like, you just start to hate them. I hate the way he's behaved over the last week, even though I'm fully on board with the point. Let me see if I can find Colton's super chat. I'm going to assume that it was YouTube and not elsewhere. But we'll see, you know. Sometimes these are hard to track down. Super chats. Oh, there is one from Colton Regal. Maybe it's because it was earlier in the show. Yeah, okay. If a kid gets into a fight, assuming the cause was just, should his father stand behind him? Or should he rebuke the son for having participated in a conflict in the first place? Well, obviously my sons are too young to have been in physical fights, at least in any serious terms yet. I guess the first time that happens, if it ever happens, if my son either tells me or I get a report from a teacher or some other kid's parent or something like that, hey, your son was involved in a fight. The first thing I'm going to ask, Robert style, is about form. Did you punch like a pussy, or did you punch with good athleticism and strength? But secondarily, I'm going to ask the questions about the reasons for the fight, the circumstances under which it started. One of the concept of violence for my sons, I mean, my oldest is about to turn 4 and my youngest is 1.5 years. So these moral concepts, I can't explain the intricacies and nuance of moral concepts like that But as my sons get older, I want them to understand violence, not fear or reject violence totally. What I mean by that is there is absolutely a such thing as justified violence, and it's actually quite important. What do we call a self-defense case? Justified violence. That's what that is. So if my son comes to me and we'll talk about that. What are the circumstances under which this violence happened? I don't want to be the sort of parent that immediately that just freaks out at the mere mention of a fight, especially with boys. That's like, boys are rough. I know we're trying to stop that these days, but yeah, that's how I would evaluate it. Let me make sure I understood the question. Make sure I didn't miss the point of it again. But should you stand behind him, or should you rebuke? It's going to depend on the circumstances. It's going to depend on the principles. Now, I will always be their father. They will always be my sons. And so I'll stand by them to that extent. But if my sons behave in morally wrong ways, they're going to know that. They're going to understand that because dad is going to make sure they do. So if my son just like sucker punches somebody for no reason, I'm not going to defend him. I'm not going to stand by him in that sort of moral sense, like he did nothing wrong, he's a good boy. No, he's gonna get a talking to at home, and it's gonna be a problem with that. But I do think it's important. I think it's like I don't know if it's propaganda now or if it's just the changing nature of parenting. Like the rejection of violence outright. It's like the same thing when January 6th happened and they said, violence is never acceptable. Well, okay, we're going to talk about this case, and clearly there were excesses on January 6th, but how do you possibly live in the United States and say, how do you celebrate July 4th and say violence is never acceptable? That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
So
I fully agree with you. I mean, violence sometimes is the answer. And of course, it has to be commensurate with the situation, the danger, whatever the case might be. But anybody who takes the view that violence is never the answer is just crazy. I mean, if somebody broke into your home, you would react with violence, and everybody, even a bleeding liberal, would go, yes, that was justified.
And the point is, you have to be strong enough as a man to meet that moment. And one of the lingering best pieces of Jordan Peterson wisdom that I hang on to, and I know people have their criticisms of Jordan.
Up yours.
But the best piece of wisdom, the way he stated it, is something like, being a man is being an absolute monster but having it under control. And when you think about what masculinity is, it's like, I am fully I'm not saying I am. I'm saying the ideal man. Fully capable of absolutely fucking somebody up with his bare hands, but is morally wise enough to understand the necessary restraints for that energy. But yeah, if someone breaks into your house in the middle of the night and says, I'm going to take your life and all your treasure, fuck them up with your bare hands or whatever other tools you got,
Yeah. And okay, I'm going to say something controversial here, but
thank you for prefacing.
But okay, let's say that you have a son who's getting bullied in school by somebody every day. Every single day he's getting bullied, getting called names, whatever, like the guy's knocking his notebook out of his hands, whatever the case may be. And this goes on and on and on. Let's say that one day your son throws a punch. We're not saying he goes and stabs the other kid or something crazy. No, he throws a punch. I'm sorry, but I would be like, yeah, good for you.
What if he threw a rock?
I don't know about that, honestly. It would be like, no. If you're going to deal with this, you deal with it like a man.
Well, there is, to your point. Now, of course, there are a lot of unjust punches that can be thrown. But is there something that is just more masculine in a defendable way that's just like a good fair man's punch? You square up, punch a guy. You're not sucker punching him. You're just like, you, sir, have insulted my honor, and I challenge you to a duel. Put him up. And you go for it.
And it's a very humane solution. Like, otherwise you're going to have, your kid in years of therapy or whatever. You know what? One punch solved the situation for everyone. The other kid stops bullying him. Your son now feels like a winner. Everyone moves on. Life is good. I see nothing wrong with that.
Thank you, Colton. And I'm sorry I missed it. And thanks to Tim for letting me know. As a reminder, if I do miss Super Chats, which does happen, you can send me an email. I'll be happy to refund you if you'd like. And glad I didn't have to do that in this case. Okay, purpose of the ages. Be careful saying law enforcement should have the benefit of the doubt. Remember COVID era when we were against mandated jab and arresting families in public parks. God's righteousness above all. Yeah, obviously I'm not going to say there's no such thing as like police misconduct or they don't enforce unjust laws, even though, of course, I have a lot of criticism, disdain even for some of the actions that police officers took in that context or in the context of federal overreach. Still, the question is, who's more responsible for that injustice? And even for those police officers like raiding churches and nonsense, like, don't get me wrong. Every police officer there should have taken off the badge and not gone to bust up a church on a Sunday because of COVID or whatever bullshit was going on. But they're still doing it at the order of another person. It doesn't justify their behavior, but I still am going to blame the order maker because that person is in a position of leadership. They're supposed to be clear-minded about these things, and more often than not, they're an elected leader. They're somebody the people picked to exercise judgment in that way. So it's not a question of, it's not like excuse cops always. It's just when unjust law enforcement actions are taken, who's more to blame? And I'm going to side with the architects of the law and the issuers of the order more than the individual police officer. That would be my assessment anyway. VV. Regarding decorum from politicians, I think it's a natural outgrowth of culture that emphasizes worship of self, maybe. These politicians don't serve anyone but self. It's a value lost with the loss of religious and moral principles above ourselves. Thoughts? Well, thank you for your support for the show.
We love you. You're very special.
I hadn't thought about it in those terms. Like, is this... Well, I don't know that I've ever asked you, Robert. Can you be godly and foul-mouthed?
I think that we will have to give an account for every word that we have said. And what I mean by that is there could be times where you could stand before the Lord and say, I used that word because it was the appropriate word for the setting. And that could be a quote unquote bad word. And so I do think that can be okay. But to Vivi's point, I agree, like, these politicians are acting like influencers instead of public servants. Like there was, at least I would like to think, that there was a time when politicians understood that they were public servants. I don't think that concept exists at all today.
Yeah, and I'm not dismissing your point at all, VV, because I would certainly agree that the loss of... well, I don't think God is lost in our society. He's just disregarded. You know, he's always there, and he'll teach you some lessons when you disobey. That'll prove his presence. But he's disregarded or ignored, and I don't know that might be a factor. These might be like the same sort of thing. They're not even like mutually exclusive or distinct. But I agree with you, Robert, that I think it's the primary explainer for me is forgetting who's the boss here. And it's just a lack of respect or a lack of... If you wouldn't talk that way to your boss, and most of us wouldn't unless you had a very chummy relationship with your boss in a non-corporate environment that you know, sometimes you might, maybe, if you're really friendly with your boss. But for the most part, you work a normal job with a boss with whom you have a professional relationship. If you wouldn't talk to your boss like that, members of Congress should not be talking to us like that. So, anyway, if they found God, things would be improved, though. I'll take your point. Esoterica Unbound, Grandma LaKaren Waters shows up because demands entrance, then wanders back to her home for her strawberry banana jello night. Well, don't forget she heckled military members on the way. She didn't go straight home for jello. Anyway, over on Rumble, Elbot, thanks for supporting the show, Elbot.
I am not going to be niggardly.
Appreciate you as always. Bladamson, in my opinion, Trump made a big mistake with Elon. Rogan being bosom buddies with Elon will take Elon's side, and Trump will be shat upon by the alt media and lose all of his or a lot of his popularity among normal people. I'm going to save... Okay, we'll get into that, like the strategy and the wisdom of this a little bit, Bladamson, when we talk about Trump and Elon. I'm going to save that for our discussion there. So appreciate your support for the show. Yakko, 1977. I won't take a side in the Elon versus Trump spat. I appreciate what Elon was tasked to do with Doge, but in my opinion, he's a leftist. As for Trump, I like the deportations, but the spending is out of control. Yeah, that's what I mean when it's like, okay, I think one guy's right about the problem and how we ought to fix it, but he's being a complete bitch. So it's a very hard case to manage. Dangerous Spaces, friendly producer and call screener. We keep getting told that these illegals work jobs that Americans won't do, but they could riot on a moment's notice. That's true. Why didn't they have fields to... Wait, can I say fields to pick, or is that a slavery reference? That's what they do, though. They pick the berries out of it. It's not cotton anymore.
That is true. That is true.
That's why weren't they working the honest jobs that Americans don't want to do? How did they get the day off?
Maybe Americans don't want to riot anymore, so they have to outsource that as well to, their Mexican friends.
Either they abandon their jobs or they're unemployed. Which is it? Well, we're never going to get a square answer on that. The actual answer is they were airdropped by a Democrat Party plane into the war zone, and they had pallets of bricks to throw readily available too. They're all a deployment of the Democrat Party. Ramsey C., I've got to dip out early, but I wanted to show some extra love for a brother in Christ and great work you're doing. Update on Knuckles next week, praying for him. Well, thank you. God bless. And of course, a lot of that is thanks to Robert. Robert has been my guide on this journey, and he's taken a little bit of a step back, but Robert is owed a lot and a lot of gratitude for his leadership on that. So thank you, Ramsey. And as far as Knuckles, I'm giving him his space and offering him his time. I haven't heard anything for probably a month or two now, but it's not my place to go prodding there. He knows that if and when he wants to give an update, he's welcome to do that. So I have to wait to do things on his time and his terms, and I hope he's doing well. Last I heard, he was taking steps to try to get well and try to get beyond that episode. So I hope all the best for him, and I trust that he's doing the right thing. Dangerous Spaces says Karen Bass being overseas when LA was burning to the ground was bad enough. The fact that she can't even, or the fact that after that event she's allowing people to set things on fire and everyone seems okay with it is infuriating. I guess the events are more comparable than I even thought about. It doesn't matter if she's there or in Africa. The city's going to burn.
It's going to burn. That's the policy.
It's not just the reality of a dry climate, a hot, dry climate. It's like an actual policy matter there. Okay, quickly over on Odyssey here. We'll get right back to it. Blankets always trying to get me to review stuff. Now I got to review miniseries, not just movies. Matt, some miniseries are only 3 episodes long. Maybe you can review one episode a week or one every other week. Whether it's movies, whether it's miniseries episodes, it's just not in the available time for the moment. But maybe it'll come back sometime in the future. I just have to politely decline for the moment. Matt, will you be watching the new King of the Hill revival? I didn't even know they were bringing it back, so I guess in the interest of refining my I'll have to give it a watch so I can make it even more credible when I have to deploy that sound. Let's see. Less than Satchel Paige. Too much hero worship on the right. Elon is a dangerous nexus of power and influence, and Trump has expanded the reach of the likes of Palantir. Always expect such to further the power at any cost. Yeah, well, I think that obviously the right is not immune to hero worship. Ideologies of all types do it. And the legends, heroes, leaders, these are very complicated things because on the one hand, I agree, like none of these people, they're all human. None of them are God. They are not owed your unconditional allegiance. It's very bad to do that because you'll be led to dark places. However, leadership and a belief in something like a belief in having a quality leader and the effect it has on morale, these are important things for any group, whether it's military, whether it's a business, whether it's your country. I'm not saying they deserve to be gods, but let's put it this way. Isn't there some national benefit to having like a degree of, I don't know what the right word would be, appreciation, reverence, high regard for our founding fathers, for example? They were all just men, all right? They're not God. They're not perfect. They all had their flaws. They also, I believe, had a very solid philosophical founding and philosophical understanding. What do you think, Robert? Is it having a little like larger than life perception of a person like that, whether it's the president, whether it's the founding father of the country, benefit or danger or both?
No, honestly, I think it's a benefit. And I'm speaking purely from a pragmatic standpoint. Like, let's say that you work for a company, you want the kind of boss, and by boss, I mean the guy ahead of the company, the kind of guy that you can cut some slack because you generally trust him. You generally think he's smart. He's trying to do a good job. So maybe he's going to make decisions from time to time that you're like, I don't know about that. But you know what? this guy has been doing a good job, so I'm going to follow him. And that organization can be much more effective than an organization with such a weak leader that no matter what he does, you're going, that sucks. I'm not going to follow.
There's a lot of wasted time at minimum. Like, I distrust everything that guy says, so I have to spend a couple hours really scrutinizing whether it's wise or not. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Anyway, thank you for the thoughts, Less Than Satchel Page. All right, we're going to leave it there.
I'll have to just circle back with you.
We'll come back to your chats at the end of the stream. But we're going to get back into the news. Kilmar, the Maryland father. Hold on. God, they've like, speaking of things that annoy me, like making a good argument but being a complete bitch about it. When software adds features that are in fact obstacles, I use OBS to do the show, and I'd like to blame some of the duct tape on OBS, but really it's user error because OBS is great software. And I have Discord, so I can talk to producer Tim through Discord. But now they've integrated them, so it's like, oh, hey, you're on Discord. You want to have like integrated buttons so that you can like open up? No, I don't. I'll go to Discord if I want to manipulate Discord. Get the hell off my screen.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't figure out how to disable it. It's like one of those features that's impossible to just turn off. You'd think they'd have a switch. Anyway, thank you for listening to my tech complaints.
Great story. Compelling and rich.
Anything to blame the duct tape on somebody else.
But you need to be like a keynote speaker for Microsoft, because everything you just said is how I feel about Microsoft every day of my life. It's like, stop adding features no one asked for.
I mean, Apple does that a lot too, but I think, in my opinion, Apple they have a better connection to like what is useful because I agree. Microsoft has that stupid, I know it's decades old at this point, but that stupid clunky paperclip was really representative of the Microsoft philosophy. Hey, it looks like you're performing a task. Would you like me to get in the way so it's more difficult to perform the task? No, you son of a bitch. I know how to spell the word. Get the hell out of here. They've just made the paperclip their entire operating software. And are you on Windows 11 yet?
Oh, yeah.
I am not. And I've been afraid because I stream from a PC now. Like a lot of my work I do on Mac, but because I'm used to doing the stream on a PC, I've just done it on a PC forever. I am legitimately afraid to update to Windows 11 because I fear that the stream is going to be destroyed. I won't be able to do it anymore once I press the button.
That is hilarious.
Yeah.
Windows 10 is about to become unsupported.
I know, but I feel like I'm just going to ride it out. It's you talk about like becoming your parents. I remember like one time my dad asked me something because he has a Mac, and he said, I think like Mac Sonoma had just come out. So he said something like, what will happen if I upgrade to Sonoma? Like, will all my files disappear? My dad's out listening right now somewhere. So hopefully he's laughing at that. But it's like I hear, no, Dad, your files are not going to disappear. The whole point is to give you a better software experience. So they're not going to just delete everything. With Windows, I'm not sure. Now I've become my dad. Like, what will happen if I upgrade to Windows 11? Will they delete everything I have and make my show impossible? I'm not doing it. I see no reason to. So, based dad is what I'm trying to say. My dad was onto something. Anyway, hey, great transition. Speaking of based dads, Maryland father, Kilmar Abrego Garcia, the famed based dad, deported to El Salvador too soon. He's now back in the U.S. Exactly as Democrats claimed the Supreme Court demanded, even though they didn't really. But that's beside the point. Perhaps Democrats might celebrate until they realize he's back to face federal prosecution for human trafficking. And actually, they probably will still celebrate him even after that. But Pam Bondi announced the charges on Friday. According to Attorney General Pam Bondi, an agreement was reached with the Salvadoran President Bukele to return Kilmar after a grand jury returned an indictment against him. Bondi says Kilmar wasn't just a trafficker occasionally. It was a full-time job. This is what he was doing all the time. According to Bondi, Kilmar participated in the smuggling of thousands of illegal immigrants.
The grand jury found that over the past 9 years, Abrego Garcia has played a significant role in an alien smuggling ring. They found this was his full-time job, not a contractor. He made over 100 trips, the grand jury found, smuggling people throughout our country. Thousands of illegal aliens were smuggled.
So Abrego Garcia appeared in federal court in Tennessee on Friday. The reason it was in Tennessee is because that's where he was pulled over by Tennessee State Police and Highway Patrol in 2022, which we'll get to in a moment. But he was back in the U.S. He went immediately to federal court in Tennessee. This was on Friday. There were 2 charges against him: conspiracy to transport aliens and the actual transportation of undocumented aliens. So being part of this, we know that he was operating under the direction of his boss, who himself is in federal prison for trafficking people. That is also a complicating factor for Kilmar. It's not like they just misunderstood what he was doing in that weirdly modified Chevy Silverado to fit 8 people inside with window tint beyond the legal limit. It's that his boss is like, yeah, I'm in prison for, moving illegals across the country, and I had Kilmar do it. Anyway, if convicted, Kilmar faces up to 10 years for each alien transported. Now, even if they convict him, if they're saying he transported or participated in the transportation of thousands of people, they're not going to give him like 100,000 years in prison, I would assume, right? He probably would be sentenced to something like 10 and they all run concurrently or something. Is that how that would work?
I'm not sure in this case because I'm unfamiliar with this area of the law, but I'm guessing that yes, that would be the case.
Okay. So Bondi says if this goes as planned, which is Kilmar gets convicted, he goes to a U.S. prison then, a federal prison, then he gets deported once the sentence is served. So that might be the situation for Kilmar now, like a decade in prison and then goes back to El Salvador anyway. And to anyone who paid attention, none of that is news. Yeah, Kilmar is a human trafficker. He is an illegal immigrant smuggler. And we know, because there's body cam footage of him getting pulled over by Tennessee cops with that weird modified truck full of illegals. And that video has been available for weeks or months now. If you didn't see that video, I did a whole video myself on it a few weeks or maybe a month ago, something like that. But this event was November 2022. Again, 8 people weirdly crammed into an old modified Chevy Silverado pickup truck.
Good, and you? All right. Everything good? You got a bunch of people in here, don't you?
It's 1%. Yes.
How dark are your windows?
Huh?
How dark's the back windows?
From Texas, it's good.
How many rows have you got in here? 4?
Where?
4 seats? 4 rows of seats?
Yeah, it's 3 seats.
Did y'all put an extra one in?
Huh?
Did y'all put another one in?
No.
Did it come like this?
Use the truck.
I've never seen one with that many seats in it.
You know what you got here, right?
No.
He's hauling these people for money, is what he's doing. But there's 8 people in there.
Yeah, I know. I didn't know that. They put an extra row of seats in there.
Yeah.
So why didn't they take care of him then? Well, he didn't have a Tennessee state crime that was arrestable. They did call the FBI, and Joe Biden's FBI said,
I don't give a damn fuck.
And so he was free to go. And Kilmar has been trafficking people and beating up his wife as a proud Maryland father ever since. With those cops on the scene, there was talk of like, could we get him on this? Because he didn't even have a driver's license. My driver's license is suspended because of immigration process X, Y, and Z, he said. The cops asked during that pullover, does anybody in this weird car full of 8 people with the blacked out windows, does one of you have identification or a driver's license? No. Okay. I'm a little surprised that Tennessee cops couldn't do anything about this. I mean, they did contact federal law enforcement, who is the proper jurisdiction or who has proper authority in this matter. But given the insanity of that incident, I'm surprised they couldn't arrest him on anything.
Yeah, it is surprising to me as well. Besides, when you arrest somebody, and this is going to sound kind of evil, but like, you don't have to later win your case. You know what I mean? Like, you can arrest somebody based on some argument, even if later on the person is able to succeed in their defense. So I'm kind of surprised that the cops are not able to come up with some grounds to arrest the guy, even if ultimately the prosecution is unsuccessful.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to have to let him go if you can't bring a charge, obviously, but I guess that's maybe the calculation. Well, who would bring the charge that sticks? It would be the feds, and if the feds are telling us we don't care, maybe they're just thinking, well, what can we really do?
Yeah, but I'd be concerned for the people that are being transported.
Yeah.
It sounds like in this case, And I mean, we know so little, but maybe these people just paid him some money and that was the end of that. But in a lot of these cases of human trafficking, like those women are being abused. You know, it sounds like there were no minors in the car. But
I don't think we even know. It doesn't look like the person in the front was, but I don't know. I don't think there's any description or knowledge of who that was. He said he was moving people to work construction, which may be true. It might have been like all young male construction laborers. But you know what? Young men tend to need some company too, to your point. So were there any company providers in the car? I would like to know.
Yeah. And so I have a hard time understanding how Democrats are not more outraged by these cases of human trafficking. And I know they look at it like, well, we're getting more illegal aliens into the country, and for some reason that's amazing. But how do they not have any sense of pity for the terrible things that happen in that process?
Yeah. Well, we're going to try to get an explanation from Democrat members of Congress here and see what they have. You're asking me. I try to be good at considering the argument from I don't have one other than these people are bad and evil and they want our country invaded by bad people. That's the best description I can give for the answer to that question. But with the charges now against Kilmar, CNN has to confront the reality that, these statements about his criminality that they've been fighting against generally, or scrutinizing, if you want to be polite, those were not just credible, there is evidence to back them up. And that evidence was available not just to the Justice Department. Like, again, you could watch this video on X weeks or months ago. But a CNN analyst talking about this news, again, these charges really support the narrative of Kilmar's criminality. And then multiple analysts questioned the motive behind bringing the charges.
And so the question, obviously, that will have to be litigated as part of this case is whether these new facts emerge because there was sort of political pressure to bring this case as a way to resolve this situation.
It also goes to the narrative that they have been repeating and doubling down on, that Garcia is a criminal and that he had charges against him and that there were things in his past that they had not made public yet. Now, of course, we're seeing this, and the big question is, do these hold up in court? And we'll have to watch how this plays out.
Okay, but they aren't new facts. These are known facts that you didn't bother finding. They were available if you went and made, say, a public records request in Tennessee. You could have got them. And it's not a narrative that he's a criminal. He is a criminal. I know he gets a presumption of innocence and all that. He was just on video trafficking illegal immigrants, in addition to beating up his wife, according to her accusation that she now retracts for some reason. In addition to pretty credible evidence of being an MS-13 gang member, which I know they deny, but like, do you hang out with other MS-13 gang members at 7-Eleven and get arrested and be like, oh, I was just doing the old Lloyd Christmas from Dumb and Dumber. I brought out a big gulp and tried to say hi to these guys and just happened to be arrested at the time. You don't hang out with, MS-13 members, they don't let you hang out with them unless you're a part of the club. Anyway.
I don't go to court. I do transactional stuff, but if I ever do, I want to pull this line. When the other side is winning and their facts line up with what they're claiming, I'll be like, well, isn't it convenient that their facts line up with their narrative?
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, that's how that works. When you're telling the truth, facts tend to line up with your quote unquote narrative.
It does work that way. It's magical. Mm-hmm. There is a legitimate strategic question for the Trump administration. I'll get to that in a moment, because I think that'd be interesting to discuss with you. The question of why you bring these charges, well, it could just be as simple as it's a matter of justice. A crime was committed, so Kilmar must be held to account. The strategic question is, why is it better to do it this way with prosecution and presumably imprisonment in the United States instead of just leaving him in Salvadoran prison instead? Well, I want to talk about that more in a moment. But before that, a little bit of the Democrat reaction, so you can assess how these people possibly explain their viewpoints. Also on CNN, Democrat Congressman Jamie Raskin was challenged by host Casey Hunt. Hey, are Democrats politically wise to push so hard for Kilmar, considering Trump's immigration moves are popular? Trump has a lot of political vulnerabilities right now, economically. Certainly people are not convinced on this tariff stuff, and there's wide opening for Democrats to attack him there. The place where Trump enjoys persistent popularity is on immigration. You want to make this LA stuff controversial? Most Americans are looking at that and saying things like you are. Not just the National Guard. We do need active duty military, and we need a bigger boot. That's what people are thinking. So for them to attack Trump on immigration is politically unwise, but especially with guys like Kilmar, because Kilmar isn't just like, oh, he's not a Maryland dad. Okay, he's done a lot of stuff. So should Democrats be defending Kilmar politically? And Jamie Raskin, in response to that question, says, well, what do you mean? I'm not aware of any Democrats who ever defended Kilmar, except for him on the same network like 6 weeks prior.
She especially focused on the idea that Democrats defended Kilmar Abrego Garcia, even though he, of course, is alleged to have committed these crimes. Do you think that Democrats risk politically playing into the president's hands by focusing on this case?
First of all, I don't know of a single Democrat who defended him. He was falsely arrested and removed from the country. So now they're making up all this stuff about MS-13. Or, let's say he was responsible for the January 6th attack and he coordinated the assault on 140 police officers. They're making up things against a guy who's never been prosecuted, much less convicted of anything criminal.
That is an interesting hypothetical, though. If you could show that he was a January 6th orchestrator, then would you finally support deporting this guy? Would that be enough? Which wins in that case?
Oh, I think there's nothing higher than J6, but yeah, the prison forever.
Now, I get what they're saying, okay? We're not defending the guy. We're defending the principles of due process. I agree that's important. I don't think that there are like grave concerning due process worries when an illegal immigrant criminal gets deported to his home country, other than like really fringe technical disputes about whether the court order that supposedly prohibited him from going to El Salvador specifically because his mom's pupusa restaurant was under threat from rival gangs, all that nonsense. You can get really technical about it. Am I worried that my due process rights as an American are threatened by the removal of this guy to the country he's from? Absolutely not. But that's the argument that they're going to make. You try to take it at its strongest. It's not about the guy. It's about due process. Well, there's Jamie Raskin saying the guy has been falsely accused. The guy did nothing wrong. It's not a point about, listen, we evaluate guilt through a process and that has not yet been completed. So we have to let the... He's saying he did nothing wrong. He's saying he's falsely accused. He absolutely defended the guy. And nobody in Congress defended the guy harder than nobody defended Maryland dad harder than Maryland Senator Chris Van Hollen, who of course flew to El Salvador to have a margarita by the pool with Kilmar, except don't worry, he didn't taste the margarita. And you can tell because the rim salt is still intact. That was the defense. I think there might have even been cherry garnish that he didn't. You can see it in a little bit of red there. He didn't even touch the cherry. Chris Van Hollen likewise says he's only defending the legal principles, not the man. He was on MSNBC in response to this news. He says Kilmar's return to face charges is a victory for the Constitution.
This is a victory for due process. It's a victory for the Constitution. It should not have taken this long. I mean, as you indicated, the Trump administration dragged its feet for a very long time, ignored a 9-0 order from the Supreme Court. But it's important that Abrego Garcia now come home and have his due process rights upheld in a court of law. This is about his constitutional rights and really the rights of all of us, that if President Trump and his administration can trample the rights of one person, the rights of all of us are at risk.
Okay, his home is not here, though. His home is El Salvador. He's coming home. It's not his home. But yeah, we're supposed to believe, yeah, if Kilmar gets deported to his Salvadoran home, even on maybe legally, technically questionable grounds, it's only a matter of time until you're next. No, it isn't. Are they going to come scoop me and send me to some Central American country? No, they're not.
I don't know. They might scoop me. So
speak for yourself. Hey, you can go to South America. You can go back where you came from. How about that? But you know, I'm pretty sure if you show them the paper that demonstrates your citizenship, that's going to be the end of the matter. This fear mongering about like American citizens getting deported to another country. Who? This guy was not a citizen. He was not a legal resident. He was a criminal who had been here illegally for a long time and got a bullshit order preventing his deportation. You might know more about deportation stuff or like how that works than I do. The order was only El Salvador because of the threat to the pupusa restaurant.
That was my understanding. Yeah.
Can you deport to a third country? Like go to Somalia, Kilmar, and go hang out there. Is that legally? Let's say that his deportation was completely legally square. There was a removal order. Can the federal government just send him to a country that he doesn't even let's say he had the consent of Somalia. The Somalian king or whatever said like, yeah, we need guys to shoot RPGs at Blackhawks so Kilmar can come over here. Is that legally acceptable to do? Can you just send him wherever?
I am not sure on that question. If that other country agreed, like you're saying, like Somalia is like, sure, we'll take him. I mean, I don't know. The thing is, once that person is on U.S. soil, even if that person is an illegal immigrant, now they have constitutional rights. And so there might be some constitutional argument there that's like, I don't know, cruel and unusual punishment or something like that to get deported to some random place, We
should do it by lottery. It would be so much more fun. Congratulations, you got Canada. Oh, you got Mogadishu. Rough draw.
Man, that I feel like that would stop a lot of illegal immigration, just that the sheer fear of being deported to like the Congo.
It's just like if everything's a clown show now, embrace the clownery. Let's go full clown. There's room left. Let's make it even more entertaining. But back to the point. Okay, I'm trying to understand their perspective. This is a due process win. He was charged with a crime. We have to see the prosecution through. That's a matter of process. Okay, I get all. You know what's a win for the Constitution, though, like in its original framing? The federal government defending citizens and the states from foreign invaders, especially criminal foreign invaders like Kilmar Abrego Garcia. That's one of the few reasons the federal government exists constitutionally. You know what's not a win for the Constitution? A U.S. senator neglecting his own citizen constituents and taking their money and spending it to go on a trip to a foreign country to comfort one of those foreign invaders and kind of do his own shadow diplomacy while he's doing it. I don't think that's what the framers really envisioned when they thought about the limited role of the federal government.
No, it's a clown show. Now, I will say, and this might be unpopular to say, but I respect this constitutional argument. If the Democrats had stuck to that, if they had said, look, that there was a certain process here that involved the courts and the executive cannot go around the courts. And any time that is allowed for like the executive branch to ignore the judicial branch, that does put us all in danger because where's the limiting principle there? Like if the executive branch can ignore this hearing, why can they not ignore other hearings? I am very warm to that argument that everyone deserves their day in court.
Stop being such a pussy.
But I think the argument would be better received if they said from the outset, look, if this guy's an illegal immigrant, he needs to go back. Our only complaint is he was supposed to get his day in court. And I feel like even the right would be like, sure.
And that's where this gets interesting because there's a strategic question here. And I want to talk about that a little. The CNN panel kind of got into that. Well, what's the strategy here? Like, if you're Trump, why do you make this move? They think it's about like protecting himself from illegal consequences of ignoring the courts or something like that. I don't think that's really what's going on here. That is to say, I think that this move is actually much more advantageous for him than just like covering his ass type stuff. But some possibilities about what's going on here strategically. Well, there's just kind of face value. Hey, if you want actual justice against Kilmar Abrego Garcia, you have to do it yourself. You're going to count on El Salvador to make sure that they hold him to account for crimes that he committed in the United States. If you want that brought to justice, maybe you have to do that yourself so you ensure that it is done right. But if there's some political angle here, and the CNN hosts are right, at least in that general point, if you charge and prosecute and imprison Kilmar in the United States, as they're now doing, you really do get every legal and political benefit. Kilmar is in prison for his crimes. He's not going to be out committing crimes anymore in this country. The left-wing narrative that Trump is ignoring the courts and the process concerns that you're talking about, that is now demonstrably false. He's back here. His return was facilitated, all that. The rule of law argument that you're describing is neutralized. And Democrats are left with nothing other, to the point that you made, nothing other than saying, good, I'm glad that Kilmar is getting prosecuted for his crimes. Are they going to argue once he's released, he should stay here as a Maryland dad, though? Like in a decade's time, we're going to come back to Kilmar and be like, he deserves to go back to Baltimore, wherever he's living. The point I'm making is, even if I have questions about, like, is it better to bring him back to this country? Is it better than just leaving him in El Salvador? Well, politically, probably. Like, it does seem all advantage Trump and very little downside, other than, like, I guess the cost of our country continuing to take care of this guy.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that the Democrats miscalculated. I think they thought Trump would not bring him back. So this guy became the perfect martyr, right? Because he was going to be like gone forever. And so he could turn into like a legend, the next George Floyd. It's like, oh, remember Kilmar, you know? And now that he's been brought back, they're like, oh, no, we don't know what to do with this hot potato. And they're scrambling.
Other than be like, good, I'm glad he's facing accountability for his crimes that I denied and explained away like a couple weeks ago. Okay. Anyway, we'll see how that prosecution goes. But on to the other topic of the week, and that is the Musk-Trump breakup. I mean, this is apparently one for the ages. It's right there with Brad and Angelina or Ben and Jennifer. Where does this rank compared to Johnny and Amber? I don't know if it's at Johnny and Amber levels yet, but I
mean, if someone poops in the bed, I'm all about this story. We can talk about it for a week.
My wife and I still laugh about, because in response to that, Johnny Depp on the stand saying it was so grotesque, but he says it so seriously. So whenever something's gross, we kind of make that reference to each other. It's, you know, your kid, your potty training just left the bathroom. It was so grotesque. But the problem for Musk and Trump is all the other dramatic breakups that I referenced were, husband, wife, boyfriend, and girlfriend. This is two dudes.
That's a big game, man.
But what happened here? Of course, Elon Musk departed from his former role, or his, former and formal, his formal role with the federal government on Friday. He, of course, was a special government employee in his capacity with Doge. So when you're a special government employee, by law, you have a temporary term. You're not confirmed by Congress. And so your work has to be time limited. And so Elon's time had expired. He has to go for that reason. I don't know about you, unless I missed it, everything seemed cordial right up to the end there. You had Trump giving him the symbolic golden key to the White House, and Elon said that the Doge work would continue and maybe he might pop in once in a while to offer assistance, even if he wasn't there all the time. But at least as of his departure a week and change ago, there was nothing to suggest like hostility, really even tension. And then it just blew up. And so you're shaking your head. No, you didn't catch anything that was like, these guys hate each other and can't wait till it's over.
Now, to be fair, I don't have Twitter, so know that I would know. But no, everything seems fine, especially, I don't know, he left at the right time. Everything was according to the law. I would have never suspected anything.
Then on Tuesday, Elon starts getting critical of the developing big, beautiful bill, the spending bill, the budget bill. And he tweets that he can't stand it anymore. The bill is outrageous. It's pork-filled. It's a disgusting abomination. If you voted for it, you know you did wrong. Okay, strong terms. Maybe not super nice to the guy who is lobbying for this bill and just gave him the job of taking his chainsaw to the federal government for several months. You could argue this is like a little aggressive and maybe a low-grade political betrayal. But this is fine to me. Like, I think the bill sucks too, and I generally like Trump, but I'm not going to pretend that like spending Biden levels of money is good because Trump is doing it. So I don't have a problem with that. I thought it was like I guess I was surprised by how strongly worded it was. This was a strongly worded tweet. I guess I'm surprised that his political allegiance didn't cause him to tone it down a little bit, but I don't look at this and think like, wow, he's being a huge bitch right there. It's like, yeah, I agree. There is some pushback necessary for this bill. And I especially understand it, as I mentioned, if you're in Elon's position where you have just spent months identifying government waste, alleged fraud, all sorts of comical ways that the federal government misuses our money, and then you don't see a response from Congress about that. They don't seem to even care about codifying what you've identified and eliminating that waste in the future. It is kind of like a sort of a slap in the face. It's like, well, what the hell was the point? If I was going to do this on a 1-year basis, we're going to eliminate $150 billion, but then not do it going forward. Yeah. I get the frustration. And then Trump responded. Trump was asked about this. He said, well, Elon was wearing thin. And hey, the real reason that Elon doesn't support the spending bill and he's really mad about it is because it takes away those electric car subsidies and tax breaks, which benefit Tesla. Okay, that's fine. Maybe they just disagree about this spending bill and they got a little bit of tension there, whatever. But then it starts getting super weird. It gets weird with a sequence of tweets starting on Thursday. And that led up to Elon Musk. He said he was gonna drop the big bomb. Okay. Among many tweets, Elon said, "Time to drop the really big bomb. Donald Trump is in the Epstein files. That is the real reason they have not been made public. Have a nice day, Donald J. Trump." And then Elon replied with just yes to a tweet saying that Trump should be impeached and J.D. Vance should become president in replacement of him. Just, yes, I agree with this, presumably, is what Elon is saying. Now, on the topic of the Epstein allegation, 0% chance that is true in any substantial way. Not because I'm trying to express my undying love for Trump or something like that. If you can show me evidence that Trump participated in the crimes of Jeffrey Epstein, of course I care about that. And of course he should be held to account for that. The reason I say it's 0% chance, one, we're supposed to believe that the Justice Department under Joe Biden and Merrick Garland, who weaponized their offices at every available opportunity, sat on incriminating evidence of Donald J. Trump and Jeffrey Epstein through the entire 2024 campaign, and we're gonna respect his privacy. They never deployed it. That didn't happen. 0% chance that happened. And number two, for Elon, how long has Elon known about this Epstein connection? Did you know during the campaign and you didn't care? Did you only discover this once you got to the White House and you still didn't care? And then three, not just when did you get this information, how? Elon is not involved with the DOJ or the FBI. Who gave him access? Did he raid Pam Bondi's desk? Did he find her secret truck with the truckload of Epstein files parked in some secret parking garage somewhere? None of this. There is no way that the accusation that Donald Trump has some serious connection to Jeffrey Epstein, beyond what we already know, which is like he was on the plane once in the early 90s, which was already publicly available as part of Maxwell's trial. Mm-hmm. No way there is more that Elon Musk knows more information than is public, and the Biden DOJ just allowed that to collect dust in an office somewhere.
Completely agree. There is no way. I mean, if there was so much as a little memo saying that Trump once talked to Epstein, they would have leaked it, to CNN years ago. Yeah. No, that's crazy talk. Honestly, this is the tweet, and I know we'll get to this later, that it made me feel like this whole feud was fake. But
okay, I want to hold that thought, because I want to talk about what's going on here, because I do think there's more than meets the eye. But over the weekend, or late in the week, over the weekend, I'm not sure when it happened, Elon deleted the tweets. As far as I've seen, no explanation for the deletion. Possible explanations. Is he worried about defamation? Maybe, if it is straight up false, as I believe it is, at least. Is Elon Musk trying to repair the relationship? Whatever the thinking is, or the reason is, the tweets are now gone. But, the internet is forever. They're out there. Everyone knows he posted them. It doesn't really matter if the original Twitter post is there or not. But that does invite the conversation you are getting into, which is what the hell happened. This is completely bizarre. Trump has fallouts all the time. Trump, people quit the White House. They talk shit about Trump. They write a book. Trump calls him a loser, and the next person comes in and repeats the cycle. It's not that that's weird. When I say this is weird, it's because it's so petty and woman-like. It's going far beyond this policy disagreement to this personal attack and almost self-aggrandizement too. Elon Musk said he's the reason that Donald Trump got elected. Elon Musk, I think, was helpful. Elon Musk is not the reason that Donald Trump got elected. Donald Trump would have been elected independent of Elon Musk. I would bet that with 100% confidence. That's what I say is weird about this. It's like emotional. It's self-aggrandizing. It's petty. It's all of these things that are a divergence from, like, I don't know, I disagree with Trump about this, or even Trump did this behavior that I just can't stand by. It was like this next level of emotion. So, okay, one possibility for what we're watching here is it the 4D chess? Is it the strategy? And I don't like a lot of 4D chess theories. I personally don't think that's what happened here, but I want to invite you to make that case for me if you think that might be an explanation.
Okay, now, of course, I don't know if I'm right. This is just a crazy theory. But honestly, when I saw that first tweet about the Epstein files, it just seems so fake that I thought, no, this is a show. Like, this is like when two rappers have beef, or like two basketball players, or like Kanye and Taylor Swift. Like, it's good for everyone. And think about Elon. Tesla is not selling very many cars. I mean, comparatively speaking, their sales are tanking. And one can speculate that it's because now Elon is associated with the right, and so people don't want to buy those cars. Of course, it doesn't help that people have been vandalizing those cars. So if I'm Elon and I'm having to go back to my day job, how do I benefit my company, right? I would tell Trump, like, hey, we got to have beef. Like, we got to fight. You know, you got to hate me. I got to hate you. This is just part of it. And Trump loves this. Like, this is just the best day ever. So to me, that's entirely plausible. This is just made up.
So I got to go back to being nonpartisan businessman, and I've taken a lot of damage with progressives or left-wing people, and this will help me. Okay, that's probably the best case for that I could imagine. The other piece of this, and I know this isn't exactly what you're getting at, I think that does make some sense from maybe a business perspective. I love the way, though, if there is truth to the 4D chess theory, it's the way the puppet strings can be pulled and the opposition will do things that they shouldn't do, but they do anyway. Did you see this tweet from the Democrat Party? The official party account tweeted out on Thursday, "Kill the bill and release the Epstein files."
Hell yes.
Yes. Go ahead. I'm a Democrat now.
The problem, of course, is, Democrats, they were sitting on the Epstein files. Joe Biden's DOJ was for 4 years, and they didn't see fit to release them. Even the Trump Epstein files that supposedly exist. But the problem with this being like a strategic angle is, like, why would Elon and Trump strategize to kill Trump's bill? There wouldn't be any sense in that. I would like to see this bill changed. But if you're Trump and you want to see this bill changed, you take the podium and you say, this bill has flaws, let's change them. Since you're the guy in the political leadership position. Trump could just withdraw his support for it if he wanted to undermine the bill. So even though this is really entertaining to me, the way that they'll respond to the puppet strings, it doesn't really fit like a 4D chess theory very well.
Well, okay. I don't really, again, buy the 4D chess stuff, just like you're describing. I don't think people really are that smart. But if I buy into that theory, sometimes you wanna like create failure to push people into a corner. Like, again, if we're buying into the 4D chess stuff, maybe Trump doesn't like the bill, but he needs this bill to fail to then be able to go to the Republicans and ask for the bill that he really wants.
Well, this is getting deep now.
But
okay.
Yeah, of course, I don't believe this to be true, but sure, I can hope that maybe these people are that clever.
You know what it sounds like? It sounds like you raided Hunter Biden's stash, or maybe Elon Musk's stash. And I gotta ask, is it possible that it was drugs? Because it's so emotional and so petty that personally I think it's a very real possibility. Not just because like I'm saying that's weird, erratic, emotional behavior, maybe drugs. I know I'm using the New York Times as a source, but is it possible that there was some truth to that New York Times reporting from a few weeks ago? The New York Times was saying, hey, did you know that Elon was using ketamine and other drugs like MDMA and whatever else on the campaign trail? And Elon Musk has since denied taking drugs. He tweeted, I am not taking drugs. Well, that settles that, I guess. But we know that Elon Musk has acknowledged using ketamine in the past to treat depression. Now, that was medical, in fairness. He's not admitted to using any drugs recreationally, as far as I'm aware. Mushrooms was the other one they were saying he was doing. But he did confirm that he used ketamine medically. And no confirmation of the claim from any recreational standpoint, but was Elon doing drugs? People get incredibly emotional on certain drugs. MDMA or ecstasy or Molly, as it's called on the streets by the kids. That does mess people up emotionally. That's the point of the drug. It's to give you that euphoric high. But it can also make a person very, very sad, especially when you come down off the euphoric high as it wears off. So I don't have proof that he's using drugs recreationally or irresponsibly. It's just, to me, that's my leading theory on what happened here. Like, Elon Musk partied too hard upon leaving his role and got crazy for a little. That's my thinking. I don't know. Maybe that's too accusatory. Maybe there's not enough evidence for that, but I think that's it. I think it was drugs.
I mean, it's as good a theory as any, but isn't it a little strange though that he would do drugs and then tweet? Like, I don't know. And maybe
phone's right there. Yeah.
I guess that's how people do it nowadays. I don't know. It just seems wild to me to like be high or whatever. I don't even know what these drugs do. I'm completely I'm very ignorant. But I just can't imagine myself like having this high and then this low and my mind going to like, I need to tweet about
That's exactly where it goes. When you are in an emotionally manipulated state like that, the convenience of your phone to express what you believe to be like a righteous anger or a righteous outrage and to bring attention to yourself in that way. Yeah. Not that I hang out with a bunch of people on Molly who are tweeting all the time. I'm just saying like that makes sense to me because it doesn't just explain the outburst. It explains the emotional petty nature of it. And it's a line like, have a good day, DJT. It's that kind of bullshit that I'm talking about. Like if you have credible information that he's in the Epstein files, you know what a man does? He comes out with that information and substantiates it. He doesn't do this petty bullshit like, oh yeah, what are you going to do now? He didn't substantiate and he gave the petty clap back or remark or whatever. It's that kind of bullshit. I'm like, this guy was emotionally messed up when he made this post. That's the only explanation I can come up with. So
it could be. I just love that in this episode we've like assessed serious situation based on just how manly they were. Like Ryder throwing rocks, it's like at least he's manly. This dude is like womanly. Thumbs down.
Well, that's really all in fairness, that's all my audience does to me too, is they assess my manhood constantly. So it's only fair that I extend the gesture to others. So, okay. I'm glad you brought up Tesla though, because I actually had the exact opposite thinking that credit to Logan Dobson for the AI art that I used on the thumbnail tonight. I love Trump doing the meme. Everybody was putting the bumper stickers on their Teslas. No, I had this Tesla before I knew that Elon was a Nazi. Now, Trump is doing the reverse. Oh man, I got this Tesla that I got to deal with. When I think of what's going to happen to Tesla, I pictured them more in no man's land. You're saying maybe to your point, hating Trump is good for business with a certain market, for sure. I guess the question is, can Elon credibly hate Trump? Can you just walk out of the Trump White House and say you hate Trump now? To your point, lots of people have written books to that effect that seem to do quite well. So maybe, selling a car on that basis is not that much of a leap. But what I was thinking is going to happen to Tesla is Tesla's going to end up in a bizarre no man's land. They already kind of were, because the right wing is already electric car skeptical regardless. But now you add the Trump feud, and ain't nobody within a mile's range of a MAGA hat who was interested in buying a Tesla. Now, all winter and spring, you had left-wing deranged people vandalizing the dealerships, vandalizing the cars owned by random people. Do they just come back on a moment's notice, or are they kind of gone for a little while? I figure that Tesla's going to Tesla's slump would intensify because of this, not improve. But it's not just like what's going to happen market-wise. It's what's going to happen for the individual car. Like I said, according to the New York Times, Trump's red Model S that he bought from Elon in March to promote Tesla or promote Elon Musk or whatever that event was for. He bought that. Trump bought it at market rates, like an $80,000 car. Now, according to a source speaking anonymously with the New York Times, Trump plans to sell it. And they're not saying how, because they can't go on the record about it. But like, Trump can't, I imagine that from an ethics and probably a legal perspective, Trump can't just like put this on the market and say it's $1 million for the Trump Elon car, because someone probably would buy it at a very high price because of its significance. But he probably can't do that, I would assume. So does he just have to sell it in the same way anybody would at a dealer or kind of anonymously on the internet for the value of the car, which is a used Tesla for probably something like $60,000, $70,000 now?
Man, but I don't see why he wouldn't be able to put it like on auction or something like that, right? Like politicians can't do that with official documents, right? There's a law about that.
I guess what I'm saying is, wouldn't that be using his office for personal enrichment? Wouldn't there be a case? I don't know how this would work out. It smells like it would be an ethics problem.
Yeah, and particularly, who knows who would buy it. And so let's say that it was like a dude from Saudi Arabia who bought it. There'd be accusations of money influencing politics and all that. So I'm not sure. But I say we start a GoFundMe for you so you can buy this Tesla.
This is the only electric car I would ever drive. Is the Trump Elon Tesla. I know a lot of people out there are big electric car fans, and I'm not even anti-electric car necessarily. I think technological development is cool, and I really hope electric car technology gets there. For me, it's just I live in a wintry environment that has long distances between fueling places, and I am not about to get stuck with children in some remote mountain location, unable to move the car and in need of rescue or something like that. So that's why I'm out on electric cars. I don't hate them inherently, but I would drive the Trump Elon Tesla around town. I would get groceries in it for sure. That would be fun.
Hey, we're gonna make this happen. We're gonna don't let your memes be dreams. Like,
well, speaking of dreamy memes. It's all going to be fine in the end, because did you see that Kanye is maybe implicitly offering his mediation services? Kanye, of course, close with both men. Or is he close with Elon? I don't know. Maybe not. Kanye has a relationship with Trump, though.
I hadn't seen this, but I should have just guessed. Like, of course.
There's Kanye handling the dispute. Yes, Kanye West tweeted on, or am I supposed to call him Ye? Is his name Ye these days? He tweeted on Thursday, bros, please know we love you both so much. And Kanye, I think he has a real opportunity here. I think all three of these men should be able to get together on peaceable terms over their shared love of Hitler. And if our country's foremost Nazis can't get together over appreciation for Uncle Adolf, I mean, what kind of country are we anymore? If they can't all do a Sig Heil together. It might look like combining rings and Captain Planet, but really they're sitting around the table.
And then they summon Adolf Hitler. I like it.
Yeah. It was what a crazy timeline. All right. Anything else you have to say about Trump and Elon before Hoax Hate Time?
No, this is just utterly wild. Honestly, I would not be surprised if the feud is completely legitimate, if it's completely made up, or if it was just like you believe, based on drugs. I don't know. Like, I can't make any sense of this. So I am here to watch the end of the season, whatever happens in this show.
I unironically need Hunter Biden's opinion about what happened. Hunter Biden could offer insight about what happened. Anyway, all right, it's that time of the night.
And now, the nobody saw it happen, but it's totally a product of Trump's America hoax hate crime of the week.
Ah, shit, it's backwards. You think they'll notice?
The alleged murder of actor Jonathan Joss continues to be fascinatingly insane. Now, I talked about this case on Wednesday with Joshy Boy, but there have been more developments later in the week, so I got to come back to it. But this is the King of the Hill, John Redcorn voice actor guy, killed at his home last Sunday by a neighbor, by a gunshot wound from a neighbor. The home, when I say at his home, the home was actually burned down months ago. And they were just at the home to pick up the mail, which still arrives at the home. And there had been years of conflict with many neighbors, not just the neighbor who shot Joss, but many neighbors in the area. And it was because of Jonathan Joss's documented insane behavior. Dozens of police calls about this sort of stuff, patrolling around the neighborhood, armed with firearms, a crossbow, various weapons, just threatening people, being on other people's property, being generally insane and deranged. And to make it even crazier, Jonathan Joss had a air quotes, husband who's clearly a woman. And this woman is saying that this was an anti-gay hate crime because the neighbors don't like seeing two men in love, even though she's very clearly a woman, despite the goatee that she has tried to grow to convince everyone otherwise. Okay, the updates. The hate crime investigation is back on. Initially, San Antonio police said there's no reason or evidence to call this shooting a hate crime. It was a dispute between neighbors, and they charged the neighbor with murder, but the police department said that's not a hate crime, though. Well, now they're reversing that, and they're saying they are looking into whether sexual orientation was a motivating factor, even though, again, Joss and his actual wife are a straight couple since she's a woman, but they say that it's gay because she considers herself transgender. You look as confused as Joshy did on Wednesday night.
It's so weird. His sexual orientation, he was into women.
He put P's and V's, yeah.
Yeah, and no one shoots you because you're into ugly women. Like nobody's like, you know what? He is married to a woman with a beard.
That guy's wife isn't near hot enough. I'm going to end him once and for all. Yes, I'll take your point. I've not heard of that. It's not a common form of crime.
Mm-mm.
Okay. So now police aren't claiming they have uncovered new evidence to say that this was a hate crime, but the police chief is now saying that the statement denying the possibility of a hate crime was premature. In part, the police chief said, I will own that and simply say again that we simply shouldn't have done that, meaning saying it was not a hate crime. It was way too early in the process for any statements of that nature to be issued. The police chief said many in the LGBTQ plus community are, quote, feeling anxious and concerned after Joss's shooting, and that a lot of it has to do with the premature statement. The loss of Jonathan Joss was tragic, most heavily felt by the LGBTQ plus community, he said. That is a political statement in response to the outrage. It's not based on any new fact or new evidence. It's that a bunch of gays and people who consider themselves to be allied with a bunch of gays said, but we're afraid. And we demand that you treat this as an anti-gay hate crime, even though it was a guy and a woman. That is pure political pacification. That's all that is. But
the plus in that LGBTQ plus is doing so much work.
Yeah, it's gone all the way around and through, including straight people, even if they are, not particularly handsome or pretty. But okay. That's update 1. Technically, the hate crime investigation is back on. Update 2, and this might have been available on Wednesday. I just hadn't seen it. There's the oddity of the house. Now, remember the quote unquote husband and Jonathan Joss were living at this house previously. They go to the house to get the mail, but the house is actually burned down. It was burned down earlier in the year. How did it burn down? We still don't know. Initially, this husband, Tristan Gonzalez, said the neighbors threatened Jonathan Joss and her with arson. We're going to burn down your house. They said that all the time, and the police would never stop it. Okay. Neighbors say it was a meth lab or some other kind of drug-created fire. Or did Jonathan Joss and his air quotes husband burn it down themselves for some kind of insurance claim or some kind of financial benefit? Well, whatever happened, we now have video of Joss in the house after the fire while it's smoldering. And his commentary includes, "Let the motherfucker burn."
The roof is on fire. We don't need no water. Let the motherfucker burn. Now, I do not own the rights to this, but honestly, the roof is on fire. Happy New Year, everybody. You can't beat them, burn them out.
Yeah, you know, just a normal guy trying to extinguish the fire at his house while singing about it.
Yeah, and wouldn't you be like a little scared to be in a home that is at least partially on fire? Like the whole scene seems bizarre.
I would have some structural stability concerns about that roof that was formerly on fire. It might collapse on you.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like I wouldn't be like chilling, like, you know, shirt off, just like whatever. But what do I know?
Although I have to say, he sprayed that hose with very manly form. It was very athletic, very strong. I appreciate that about Jonathan Joss. He did that part right. Okay. Now, maybe it was just a weird joke. Okay. Speaking of weird joke, maybe he's just like, okay, my house burned down, but people process difficult things with humor. I do that. We all do that. If something horrible happens to you, you know, I'll be there cracking a joke too, whether that's in good taste or not. I can understand that. But Joss is doing that even too weird for me. And this one wasn't a joke, I don't think. He was also on a podcast like a week before he was killed. And it was on a King of the Hill podcast. And he brought up this house fire. And he was denying accusations that he and his air quotes husband burned the house down for money. So you decide, is this a denial? Is this some kind of joke? Or is this an admission that he burned his own house down and, by the way, killed his dogs for a check?
Joss was also on a podcast last weekend during a trip to Austin. The podcast mainly focused on Joss's role in King of the Hill, but he did speak about when his house burned down in January.
My closest friend said, Jonathan, we know you set that fire. We know you did it for the money. I said, guys, my dogs. We're there. I would never hurt my dogs.
Yeah.
I would never light my dogs on fire.
Yeah, no kidding.
I didn't hear the first time I listened through that. I didn't hear until now. He said, my closest friend said to me. That's not randos on the internet being like, that dude killed his dogs for money, which we have seen happen in the LGBTQ plus community before. But when your closest friend says to you, Jonathan, we know that you burned your house down, I'm going to assume that his closest friend has some information about Jonathan that I probably don't as an outside observer. What were the reasons that your closest friend would say, I know that you burned your own house down? Why would your closest friend say that?
Yeah. And even if your friend is wrong, let's say, why would he even suspect that? Like, I just want to know then there is background here that we are missing. And if this dude like killed his own dogs for money, just straight to jail or worse.
Well, the husband, who we'll hear from in a moment, she said that the whole confrontation was that they arrived at the house to get the mail and they saw the skull of their dog sitting on the lawn or otherwise on prominent display with the harness of the dog. So the dog, and then they were wailing in pain, and that's why the neighbor came over and said, hey, you homos, shut up. I'm here to end you once and for all. I don't like screaming about dead dogs. But if they did this on purpose and they are orchestrating this whole thing, not only did they kill the dog, they made the dog's remains like a display that were a part of the plot. I'm not making an accusation here, but there's so many questions. It's like, okay, whatever happened, your dogs died in a house fire in January. You're showing up June 1st, and the dog's skull is on display there months later. Where did the dog skull come from? Why is it just now showing up? Are you telling me like a neighbor kept this just to intimidate you with it later? I don't understand.
Yeah, and that makes the video of him earlier like singing while putting out the fire or whatever harder to explain. Like if my 2 dogs just died in a fire, I'm not singing a stupid song while trying to put out the fire. Like it is a completely different scene. Before I could understand it, like let's say my car was maybe totaled, maybe not totaled in an accident. Maybe
Someone
I
threw
would,
a rock at it when you're driving through LA.
yeah, maybe I would be hoping like, oh, let's please be totaled so like I can move on with my life, right?
Yeah.
Like it's easier if they just pay me. I get that. But if my 2 dogs just died in that accident, no. Different story.
All right. So if that's not insane enough, that brings us to the husband, Tristan Kernday Gonzalez, giving a lengthy interview, 40-minute interview to San Antonio NBC, the local station there. And the commentary is as deranged as you'd expect, but it does offer insight into what likely happened here. So I'm not going to make, trust me, 40 minutes, I could have played the whole thing and responded to all of it. But I pulled out some of the stuff I think is important. Gonzalez says they had this great plan to get the money for their burned down house, and they were going to buy a teardrop trailer, like a camper trailer, and they were going to live a life on the run from all those who threaten them.
We were heading to the property to check the mail. We were waiting on a check from the Burned Out Victims Fund of San Antonio. We were going to use that money to go to South Carolina to pick up our car. We had left it parked at my family home, and our plan was we were going to get a little teardrop trailer that we could pull with the car, live in that. You know, if anybody bothers us, we'll just get up and go. It was planned so well.
That's the very masculine goatee I was talking about. Very convincing.
She has to shave. That we used to be a proper country. Like she has to shave.
Get the National Guard to forcibly shave this woman right now.
Mm-hmm.
But again, like bizarre commentary that maybe I'm reading too much into. I try to not go to the automatic conclusion, but it was all planned so well. Okay, I get it. You mean that your plan was to collect whatever benefits you got for the burning of your house and start a new life, and that plan was planned well? I get that she doesn't mean we planned to burn down our house and it all went so well. But it's a very weird thing to say about even a silver lining in a terrible event. Like, this terrible thing happened to me, but it's okay, or there are things to appreciate about it because it led to this. It was all planned so well. It's a very strange thing to say about something that is supposed to be a horrific event that is hugely unfortunate in your life. Do you find that commentary to be weird, or am I reading too much into it?
Yeah, I mean, it could be that these people just are so incredible that the house burned down and they never looked back and they thought, we're just moving on, and made their plans. Yes, it could be, but to your point, they just seem very unfazed by this, almost as if they expected it. Who knows?
And this woman is simultaneously saying this is a hate crime, needs to be investigated as a hate crime. But also, she's not going to work with San Antonio police anymore to investigate.
That's probably the extent of communication that I will be having with the SAPD, because I don't feel the need to waste any more energy on them, because they didn't do anything for my husband while he was alive. So I don't want to hear from them now that he's dead.
Why not? Don't you want justice in this case? That woman is the closest witness to the shooting. She was right there, as we'll hear about in a moment. Why would you not help the investigation when you're the one with the most information about it? I get that you have frustration with what you perceive as their lack of stopping this from happening, but does justice not matter to you anymore? Well, the neighbor shot my husband in the face right in front of me, but you know what? It's okay. I'm not going to work with the police department to pursue justice because they were mean to us once, or they didn't do what I told them to do once. That doesn't make any sense.
No, this is the most suspicious of the clips you've shown, in my opinion. Like that is very odd. But what kind of drugs are these people on that her husband died recently, right? Didn't this just happen like in the last couple of weeks?
It happened last Sunday, June 1st.
And she's talking about this so matter-of-factly, like there's not an ounce of emotion. That is so strange to me.
How manly of her. She's really committed. That goatee and her, her stoic personality.
I mean, but isn't that odd? Like if your wife had died 10 days ago or a week ago or whatever, like, would you be talking about it? It's unfathomable.
I would say it was all planned so well.
Yes.
That's what I would say. What kind of drugs is she taking? Ask Elon Musk, because maybe she's into his sample. But okay, when I say that she's the closest witness, like she was right there when the shooting happened, we know that because she describes it. She says that Joss was shot effectively at point blank range in the head, to the point that she had to hold his face together after he was shot.
I knew that based on the close range and the severity of the head wound, that there was not going to be any medical hope of saving Jonathan's physical form. There was a lot of damage to many vital areas. And so I held my husband's face together as best I could.
Now, to your point, that is delivered rather emotionless. So I put his face back together like a puzzle after it got shot apart. Okay. As a matter of fact, of the fact of how this played out, that means one of two things generally. Like, okay, he was shot in the head at very close range. Either this was a sneak attack assassination, which it wasn't, because we know the two exchanged words before the shooting, because Gonzalez describes that, or there was some kind of confrontation or fight that happened before the shooting, which explains the close range. And since it is the second explanation, because we know there were words exchanged and there was some kind of confrontation because she describes that, that means this was a very close range fight. And that makes it more likely that this was some kind of self-defense scenario. Again, I'm not saying it for sure is. And the other complicating factor is it happened on Joss's property, as far as I understand. But why was there a very close physical fight that resulted in this guy getting shot in the face at point blank range? It is not, hey, look at those two men loving each other. I bet if I show them their dog's skull, they'll think twice. And if they don't, I'll shoot his face off. Something happened that explains this. But I don't know. Do you have any, you disagree with that general assessment of how this must have happened?
No, I agree that all that makes sense. The only alternative explanation is somebody could just not stand that goatee and came out and was like, you all need to leave.
Case dismissed. Have a nice day, sir. Yeah. And Gonzalez says the hate crime stuff, not just an anti-gay murder. It was also an anti-Indian murder, like anti-Native American murder. I didn't know that Pride Month is also Indigenous Peoples Month.
I think it does bear worth noting that Jonathan was murdered on not only the first day of Pride Month, but also the first day of Indigenous Peoples Month. Because, yes, we'd had problems with this neighbor for a long time, but why did he wait until this day specifically to kill Jonathan? What message was he trying to send to both of us or to the community about people like us?
So the neighbors hate them so much. It's been years of hostility and conflict. I know. I'm waiting until the first day. That son of a bitch on June 1st, just so everyone knows what Pride Month really means, which is shooting off gay guys' faces for having sex with women too much or whatever. Did you know June was Indigenous Peoples Month?
No.
The gays, so we stole the land from the Indians and the gays stole the month from the Indians too. Is that how this worked?
I don't know. Or maybe that plus again is doing so much work. It's including Indigenous people or whatever. Like, no, again, in any proper scenario, somebody would have just slapped her right then and there and been like, look here. Nobody waited till the first day of Pride Month to kill your husband who's having sex with a woman. No, this is so made up.
It is completely insane. And just in case you like, it's not just insane, the timing theory. The insane thing is much more broad than that there was like one neighbor who hated them so much. Their theory is actually that all the neighbors hated them enough to kill them. This just happened to be the neighbor who finally did it. Listen to Gonzalez explain, again, how many neighbors, even all the neighbors, apparently wanted to kill her and or Jonathan Joss.
Jonathan actually would often talk about how he felt that the neighbors were going to kill him one day, and it wasn't always just that particular individual. He had a feeling that it was coming from all sides sometimes. You know, maybe he was able to sense something. We always had a sense of impending doom every time we went back to go check the mail, because it just felt like eyes were on us and they were just waiting for the right point to attack us.
Whoa there, Rochelle Walensky. You remember the CDC director saying that about COVID? There's a sense of impending doom. Yeah, Jonathan Joss had a keen sixth sense about people trying to kill him. No, the guy was on drugs and was mentally ill. What you're describing is a guy who's paranoid about every single person that he sees. Every neighbor wants, what is this, the most hateful neighborhood? The most anti-gay but actually straight neighborhood that exists? Every neighbor wants to kill you. If that's true, you're kind of the center, you're the hub of that wheel, aren't you?
Yeah. I may not know what really happened in the situation or whatever, but if every time you just go get your mail, all your neighbors want to kill you, there is something you're not telling us. I don't know what that is, but there is some story behind this that one day will come out.
Yeah. So if I had to bet, the just outcome here is going to be self-defense for the neighbor, that there's something that explains that confrontation and something that explains the lethal force that ended Jonathan Joss. I would think that justice here is probably charges for Gonzalez, this woman with the goatee, for fraudulently burning her own house down and collecting benefits. Not making an accusation. I'm just saying that's the way I read this. I could be wrong. If I'm wrong and that comes out, of course, I'll update the story as it develops. I'm not that into true crime, but if I was going to make a true crime podcast, not that I think I have a deep market in that arena, but this would be, I'd follow this case if I was doing true crime. This has everything. This has the politics. This has the burning your own house down. This has like mental illness. This has drugs. This has women with terrible goatees that we're expected to call men. This is a very, very deep case. I could go on and on about it. Great story.
Yeah. But one day we will learn the truth, because whoever was interviewing this woman, it's kind of upsetting that they never asked why. Maybe they were not allowed to, but like, if you told me, like if you called me and you're like, hey dude, every time I go get my mail, like all my neighbors want to legitimately kill me, my first question would be, why?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
I don't know.
I did listen to the interview in full. As far as I'm aware, that question was never asked. To be complete, I would encourage people who are interested to go back and listen, but I don't remember the reporter asking that question, because it was, as far as I recall, it was just taken for granted. Like you're saying, oh, they all want to kill you. And wow, that's very unfortunate. It was not, there was no, it's not even an I doubt it framing. It's just, that's a crazy thing to say in the sense that that's not common. What explains that?
Mm-hmm.
Why? Yeah. Why is the word that we're looking for, like you said, and it just was not asked. It's just taken as true. But all right. Lastly, I got a couple cases here. I'm going to try to get under the 3 hours, I swear. But the national nightmare must end, okay? Transgender sexual fraud keeps entrapping honorable men, or maybe not that honorable, but men who deserve better, men who are just looking for a regular whore, not a tranny, and certainly not a woman with a goatee, although they probably would be better off with the woman with the goatee.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, recall, the claims of rampant anti-transgender violence, often hoaxes, but the ones that are real, they're actually often caused by fraud committed by the tranny himself. Man presents as a woman, man attracts another man for a sexual encounter, sexual acts are committed, man finds out he just received whatever from another man, and then a beating ensues. We call that phenomenon the fraudulent blowing, okay? And we need to deploy the National Guard to stop that too. We actually do need law enforcement on that, because sexual contact with other people on fraudulent premises, it removes their consent from the encounter, and therefore it is a sexual attack. It needs to be treated as such, and these things need to have the presumption of self-defense beatings, because for the most part they are. recall the bizarre case in Los Angeles. I talked about this a few weeks ago. We were talking about this before we were live, but you were on when we discussed this case the first time, I think. Okay, so there's a 60-year-old shop owner who was beaten by a trio of hooligans. This shop owner is named Sabrina de la Pena, and so Sabrina has spent a lot on gigantic enhancements, apparently, but they capture all the blood runoff from her face after she's beaten. Okay, Sabrina de la Pena was beaten by a trio of hooligans in Los Angeles after, he says, the shop owner says that these young men approached him in his store and sexually propositioned him. And he said, "No way, what do you think I am, some kind of sexual deviant? I'm just here to be an honorable shopkeep." And he dismissed them and sent them on their way. But they thought about it, and they thought, I really don't like how that super hot 60-year-old chick rejected us sexually. We should go back and kick her ass. And so they went back to Sabrina de la Pena's apartment and beat him up with a skateboard and other things. Now, though, there's an arrest. 2 more remain at large.
After nearly 2 months of violent attacks against 61-year-old Sabrina de la Pena, the LAPD announced the arrest of 1 of 3 suspects.
These attacks have included verbal slurs, physical violence with weapons, and most recently on May 31st, an attempted shooting during a robbery in which $30,000 was taken from her residence.
De la Pena says the attacks began after she turned down one of the individual's advances. She says he returned to her convenience store in the Westlake area, assaulted and tried to rape her, adding that he later returned with other individuals.
How did he try to rape her? Do go on. What exactly is that about? Now, maybe you hear me say, well, yes, I'm sure these men sexually propositioned you, sir. There's a counter question. Why would one of these guys accept sexual services from a guy he thought was a 60-year-old woman? That's another good question. But what's more believable, that these 20-year-olds propositioned who they thought was an old woman and beat him up for refusing, or that this old man degenerate presenting as a woman did something bizarre and predatory against them, and that's the reason why they're now beating him up? I'm not saying that they are. You shouldn't be in this position generally. I'll be... Speaking of fatherly wisdom, if your sons are ever in this position, you need to teach them some lessons.
Mm-hmm.
Don't do ketamine, kids, is the lesson. Don't do what Elon Musk does. You won't end up in these situations. You'll end up destroying your relationship with Trump and accidentally receiving sexual acts from this sort of freak. But there's no way. I have questions for these guys too, but there is no way that they just walked up to this dude and said, "Hey, you got a spare minute? Would you like a quickie in the back?" That didn't happen. Something else happened to these guys. And Sabrina de la Pena did something. I guarantee you that.
Man, the worst part of this for that poor guy who got arrested is that he probably won't be able to introduce into evidence the fact that he got a blowy. So because let's face it, there's a jury there.
It's under penalty of perjury.
Yeah, like a jury of his peers. If he could tell the jury, look, I thought that was a woman and she serviced me, the jury would be like, you go free. It's whatever, but he can't.
Do you know the Manti Te'o case? It was a famous catfish case. Manti Te'o was a linebacker at Notre Dame at the time.
Oh, yes.
And so he had this fake girlfriend, or he was catfished by somebody for years, and then the girlfriend died, and he thought that she died, but it turned out it was all fake, and it was right before the NFL draft, this crazy thing. But he went and did an interview with Katie Couric during that whole episode, and he said something like, "It didn't sound like a man. It sounded like a woman," talking about their phone conversations, because he never actually met her.
Yeah.
Returning to why I'm bringing this up is this guy's going to have to go to court and say, it didn't feel like a man. It felt like a woman. That's a rough thing to say in a court of law under penalty of perjury, for sure. I'll update the story as it develops. But they got another one, okay? In Miami, a sheriff's deputy now has criminal charges dropped after he accidentally picked up a guy at the club, got him home to his apartment, realized it's a guy, maybe beat him up, but for sure just kicked him out. But the tranny is now not cooperating with law enforcement, so the charges are now gone.
We're conducting an investigation.
I understand.
Can you please place your hands behind?
Cop cuffed.
Turn around.
Body camera footage obtained exclusively by 7 News shows the April apprehension of Miami-Dade Sheriff's Office Lieutenant Daniel Challa, whose case was just dropped.
I never assaulted her.
Denying wrongdoing just outside his apartment, Challa tells arresting Miami police he never assaulted a woman he took home from the club.
I never, no way.
Despite allegations, he choked and put red marks on the right side of her neck and chin.
Do you know the young lady that's down the hall?
Yeah.
The incident happened after the currently suspended veteran cop took home a transgender woman from Club 11.
You guys met at the club, correct?
Yes.
Walk me through what happened.
Nothing.
So you guys didn't argue?
No, we didn't argue.
You just stated that you
just
did.
kicked her out.
Why did you kick her out?
Because I didn't care for her.
Why didn't you care for her?
Because I didn't like her.
Made you kick her off.
Whatsoever. I did not squeeze that woman's neck.
The state attorney's office emailed 7 News and said in part, after numerous attempts to get the victim to cooperate, the victim refused to assist with the case investigation. It's why it says it had to drop the case.
Why didn't you care for her?
Well, she's a guy, so.
Are we going to... Is that really a difficult question to answer or ask? Is it necessary to ask, I suppose?
But he wouldn't say it. That's so wild. Like, he knew if I say that, I am like dead in like for public opinion purposes. So he's like, for no reason. I just didn't like her.
She had a terrible personality. Well, I don't know. I must say, from a criminal investigation or law enforcement perspective, though, if you actually were tricked by a tranny to the point that you got the tranny all the way back to your apartment, you probably should be suspended or fired because your ability to find clues, very poor. Do you trust this guy to investigate and solve crime? No, he needs to go. Sorry, dude.
Some of these, some of these traps, shall we say, are really good.
All right, maybe they're getting better.
I
Maybe he saw Sabrina's De La Peñas and he couldn't resist.
You know, they even like put on fake parts down there. Like, I mean,
they put on fake parts. I'm gonna have to ask you. What do you mean put on fake parts?
Like, the only reason I know this, so the internet doesn't accuse me of anything, is that somebody that I used to work with, and I will not say where, was of this persuasion.
Okay.
And he had fake boobs and of all different sizes. So he wasn't always the same size.
He might be a little more modest some days than others. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And he also had like fake strap on, like that part below. Yeah.
What do you?
Like underwear, if you will.
Okay. I mean, I guess that's enough. I guess what I'm saying is I don't understand how you strap on an orifice. How do you strap on a cavity?
I mean, it's like a big underwear that you put on, a big bikini. That's so. What I'm saying is maybe this guy was really good at hiding. Look,
but don't you still have to? Hey, take off your underwear. I'd like to get down to business.
Look. That's all I know is this guy would go out and pick up other guys. And the thing is, okay, I'm wondering how much I can say. This person passed away, okay, peacefully, not because of fraudulent activity.
What the? Okay.
And when this person passed away and people had to go into his house,
oh no,
it was full of this paraphernalia. Like,
okay,
full of these things. That's the only reason I know.
Last question. Do you know how they handle such a scenario? Is there an estate sale? Is there a garage sale outside? Do you have to go to the dump? And when they ask you, what are you dumping? Do you have to lie and say, it's just household trash? I guess it is household trash. But what does one do to dispose of? Are they not biological hazards?
So friends friends went in and they disposed of all those things before the family could find out.
Oh, wow. So that they actually, friends concealed that, but the family had to know like his general, they didn't know his lifestyle at all. They thought he was just a normal guy.
Yes.
So he must have been estranged from his family.
He was.
Okay.
He was. The family lived quite a distance away, but sometimes they would come visit him, but they did not know.
But you're saying this person died for reasons completely independent of the...
Yeah, died of a heart attack or whatever.
Oh, okay. So it wasn't like... I would think like even like a drug overdose or something could be related insofar as there might be mental problems or even a party that went too far or something like that.
Nope. And I honestly did not know while the guy was alive. It was only once he died that, yeah.
Oh, returning to you thought it was a woman the whole time?
Oh, no.
Oh.
I thought I never saw him as a woman, but then I found out that at night he would go out as a woman. And then once he died, we saw the collection of items.
You found out that he became much more womanly by night, is what you're
saying.
Okay,
Indeed. And I did not know all of the items you could buy and put on, if you will.
So that's what happened to this sheriff's deputy, is he became a victim of technologically enhanced prosthetics. And it could happen to any of us. So stay away from the Miami clubs because you don't know who you're bringing home. Moral of the story. Okay. Thank you for that insight. I had no idea. I'm just going to stop asking questions about that for the benefit of everybody, including myself. But let's get into Super Chat and then we'll call it a night. I think we're good on Rumble. Yes. Let me get into YouTube and Tippy. I think we're caught up on Odyssey too. Oh, wait, no, I always forget to scroll down on Odyssey. Monster Squirrel over on Odyssey, don't downgrade to Windows 11. Switch to Linux. New versions of Linux take less time to install and set up than trying to get Windows to work right and remove all the junk it comes with. But I've never worked with Linux operating software or the operating system. Can I like take an existing PC and move it over to Linux and have it operate the same? Is that a thing that exists? Do you know?
Yes, but you will have to make sure that the applications you use are compatible with Linux. And even when people tell you just switch to Linux, that's only half the story. You're going to have to pick what distribution of Linux you want to use. Unless you're going to go into what's called distro hopping and just switch between versions of Linux just for funsies. So knock yourself out.
God, who do I try? I don't know. It's like I feel like I need to buy multiple PCs and copy my PC onto all of them and then like update them differently just to have one that's safe that I can go back to. No, I know, like, actually, theoretically, if I just back up this PC, it should be restorable. It is backed up, but it should be restorable even to Windows 10. You know, if I wanted to undo it and go back entirely. It's just, to your point, I'm going to have to make the change eventually because pretty soon, are they just discontinuing support, like updates and stuff? Can you still use Windows 10 or will it block you from using it?
No, you will be able to use it, but you will no longer get particularly security updates.
Yeah.
Or feature updates. So you will be at risk. Honestly, Windows 11 works fine. It'll be totally fine.
I guess I'll have to try it eventually. Thank you for the insight, though. I've just never worked with Linux. I don't know. But maybe
I'm not a Linux hater. I just want to say I'm not a Linux hater. I'm just saying, if you're not a computer nerd, it's kind of complicated.
Blanket says, Matt, do you think the King of the Hill revival will be any good? I don't have reason to think it'll be worse than the original show. The original show, to me, was like a solid B. You know, like plenty watchable, very good at times, but not among the elite of the genre to me. I would still grade overall Simpsons and Family Guy much higher in the kind of animated comedy realm, at least at their heights. You could argue they've fallen off quite a bit, but I take it you're not going to be watching the revival if you weren't a big... Aren't you Texas man? Aren't you supposed to like King of the Hill?
Oh yeah, I would, but remember, I don't really watch any shows. Yeah. Like I don't even have TV or Hulu or Netflix. I have nothing. I don't even believe in microwaves. Like I'm essentially Amish.
You just read all the time, reading and reading and reading. All right, Matt, you can run a virtual machine with your Windows PC and try a Linux distro there. Okay, so I would run. Would the computer actually be running Windows and then, like, would it be a PC or would it be a Linux machine by default, and then I have to run some sub operating system on there or something?
You could do it both ways. You could do quote unquote a true partition and then just boot it in Linux. You could pick when it boots if you're going to go into Linux or Windows, or you could boot it into Windows and do like a virtual partition, and so you run Linux from within Windows, sort of like Apple used to be able to do with Windows.
I don't give a damn fuck. It's all too complicated. I'm just going to ride Windows 10 until they make me change. Thank you for the insight. All right. Over on YouTube and Tibby stream. Purpose of the age is, I sincerely hope few were fooled by a billionaire troll with multiple women and families. Elon is known for EV and space exploration for his wealth. Both are heavily subsidized by the government. Well, I guess my question on that is, what was the trolling? And do you mean fooled insofar as like he did a trick here, or do you mean fooled by we should never have trusted him in the first place? I guess I don't understand the nature of the fooling. But I've never thought that Elon Musk is perfectly aligned with my political values. He was brought in to perform a particular task. And you could argue that maybe he was like too big of a figure even for that task. You didn't need sort of a celebrity person to do the slashing at the federal government. You need someone. You need an accountant. All right. You could have sent Robert in there. Robert would have taken care of it. You know, he could have managed this, and he probably wouldn't have bitched out with emotional tweets at the end. He probably just would have gone home and not watched any TV and read a bunch of books.
Mm-hmm.
Esoterica Unbound. My lefty Facebook friends are appalled over the National Guard being used against American citizens, quote unquote. Right. As a taxpayer, I'm also annoyed. If we pay $35 million each for attack helicopters, this is what I expect them to be used for. Yeah, why can't we Call of Duty style call in the chopper? And who gets to sit in the gun? Kidding, Raj Mohan, but yeah, well, I get that you could say like, oh, they're going against American citizens, only if you're interfering with the arrest and deportation of foreign nationals with no right to be here. If you're just a guy, even if you're a guy like stealing Snickers bars in Los Angeles, you're not going to get busted up by the National Guard for that. You should get busted up by local police. They might not. But National Guard is not going and doing local policing that California or Los Angeles have jurisdiction on. So yeah, American citizens. No, who are the American citizens who are facing law enforcement from the federalized military right now? That's not a thing. It's only in facilitation of the arrest of foreign people with no right to be here. But Long Dong John, I see this year's Summer of Love is off to a mostly peaceful start. Yeah, I mean, how does this rival Minneapolis? We'll have to wait to see the aftermath. I think this was less fiery, actually. Remember, Minneapolis was, or no, that was Kenosha that was fiery, but mostly peaceful. It was after the Kyle Rittenhouse, or no, it was the fiery but mostly peaceful was the Kenosha stuff in response to Jacob Blake that Kyle Rittenhouse was at. That was the sequence there. I get all these events confused.
Yeah, they run together. I will say, it seems to me that this is in my opinion, this is the make or break moment for Trump. Is how will he react to this? Because if Trump allows this to stand, then he's just like everyone else. And
I mean, explain that a little bit more, because he's already deployed the National Guard. So what do you mean allows what to stand?
Oh, well, the unrest and the criminality. So no, I mean, perhaps the answer is already there, right? He's stopping it, but I'm still skeptical. Like, I hope that over the next week we see hundreds of arrests and all of this criminality come to an end, and that ICE raids continue to go on. Because if he doesn't, if he just calls in help to create some sense of peace, but then stops, for example, with the ICE raids because of how the crowd reacted, then to me, Trump would be kind of a fraud.
So you're saying if he bitches out, if he doesn't do more military law enforcement, this was the first step of the boot, and we need the boot not just to be doing baby steps. We need the boot sprinting down the street so that rocks aren't thrown anymore.
But yeah, you know what I mean? I mean, like if he bitches out, it's like, okay, then this is all for show and nothing will actually change.
And Gavin Newsom was right. And then we'll get based Gavin as president in 2028. Man. Thank you, Long Don John. Injured Guardian, the Elon is on Molly question raises a new sounder idea from comedian Bill Engvall. Money or drugs? All I'm saying is it's money or drugs. Maybe this was both. I mean, you through your 4D chess adjacent theory, that is a money angle. Like, hey man, on the way out, let's like do some bullshit so that might bring some money the way of my companies. Yeah, the drugs angle is like, all right, I did too many drugs and tweeted some nonsense. Could it be both? Probably not. I don't know that those really overlap, but maybe. I don't know. Injured Guardian, Captain Planet is pro-abortion and should be shunned. Captain Planet. Now I have to look this up. Are you familiar with that at all? Have you ever heard of that? Captain Planet and abortion?
I remember enjoying the show when I was a kid, but I don't know that I was old enough to understand any pro-abortion messaging.
Well, here's a claim from Live Action, of course, a pro-life activist organization. Let's pull this up.
We're conducting an investigation.
I understand.
Once a show, I have to accidentally play a clip. That's tradition. Sorry, Sheriff's Deputy Man. We got other things to pay attention to. Captain Planet, how a pro-abortion activist indoctrinated a generation of children. Okay. Earlier this month, the co-founder of one of the country's first legal abortion facilities, Horace Hale Harvey III, died. Harvey had founded the Women's Medical Group in 1970 in Manhattan. Okay, it was the largest freestanding abortion facility. Okay. Harvey's co-founder in the abortion business, environmentalist Barbara Pyle, influenced an entire generation of children. So she was behind, I guess, the development of the idea of Captain Planet or the character Captain Planet. Forgive me for not reading through this in detail. I just gotta, I don't want to go too far into a topic I'm unfamiliar with. But it sounds like this woman, was co-founder of a significant abortion facility in Manhattan and later also went on to influence Captain Planet, the concept of it, through her environmentalist activism. So maybe they don't overlap, but like the lady behind them was influential in both realms.
I wonder if the show had any messaging that was like, there's too many people in the world and it's bad for the environment, and so we need, to kill babies or whatever.
I thought you were going to say that ring nobody paid attention to. It's like wind, water, fire, forceps. And everybody remember that episode? No? Okay.
It's a deep cut, but it's there. Sure.
I shouldn't laugh because it's not funny to kill babies the way that they do, but that's how they do it. Mm-hmm. Yeah. If you ever watch, you can see congressional testimony about abortion doctors or people who've been involved in it when they describe. And I know not all. In fact, the majority of abortions are not surgical in that way. They're done through the pill, or they're done that route. Doesn't make them more morally justifiable. I'm just drawing the distinction there because people will correct me, supposedly, if I'm wrong. But as far as the surgical procedure, when they describe that, like, yeah, this is what happens with the forceps and the dismemberment, and it's even when it's just described, not like shown to you visually, but just described in specific anatomical terms what they're doing. May God have mercy on our souls, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's horrific.
Anyway, back to thank you for that little piece of insight, Injured Guardian. I had no idea about that connection. Captain Planet, also on the list of things my kids can't watch, I guess. They're not still making it, are they?
No, I thought that stopped in like 1995 or whatever. I have no idea, but isn't it old?
Ryan Allen says spouse. Just say spouse. I assume you mean me saying air quotes air quotes husband a million times. That is kind of clunky, if that's what you mean. Or these people calling that woman a husband. I don't know. They deserve more complaints, but I'm sure you'd complain about that too. Over on Rumble Compound Fracture, Linux Mint is a great distro to try for newbies coming from Windows. OBS works well on Linux, but there aren't many good video editing options. That might work for me though. I still edit on Mac. I use Final Cut just because that's what I know. Not that I couldn't learn on like a Windows-based platform. I could. It's just once you learn something and it's kind of down, and like you don't really even have to think about it when you're doing it. It's not, I'm an old dog now. I don't want to learn new tricks of video editing. But you got to do what you got to do, I guess. Anyway, thanks for the insight. All right. Thanks for the memes over on Odyssey. Appreciate that. Okay, I think we're all set, Robert. Let me give a quick refresh here, make sure we're good. But is there anything else you want to mention before we're out of here?
No, thank you for having me back. This was a lot of fun.
Thanks for being here, of course. One more just came in from Purpose of the Ages. Elon is a troll liar. It's reasonable to have laughed and cheered for his trolling of the left, but I pity the fool who trusted him. He demonstrated many characteristics of a liar. Yeah, I think that he did a generally good job with Doge, but is that a guy that I would necessarily trust at a high level? Frankly, his behavior with women and his own fatherhood is very concerning. That Ashley St. Clair was tweeting at Trump, if you need breakup advice, give me a call, dealing with Elon. Whatever. It's like, okay. I mean, that's kind of funny, but also like you guys have a child, so it's not really that funny. That child is the most important thing, and yeah, it's not, I get it. You're, when you're big and important and rich and powerful, women throw themselves at you, and you want to talk about the willpower necessary not to shoot Maxine Waters when she's begging for it. If you got everyone in the world throwing herself at you at all times, I'm sure the willpower does wear a little bit thin. I could understand that. But it with Elon, it's like, I have to believe that his worldview is like pro that, like just pro impregnate women, and the checks will be the fatherhood. That is obviously not true. Like if you have a child and it doesn't work out for circumstances X, Y, and Z, you intended to be a full-time part of that child's life, but whatever intervening factor stopped it. At least there's regret for that. Like that's not ideal. I shouldn't be doing that, but the situation is what it is. With Elon, I get the sense that just impregnating women and leaving is the intent. And that, of course, is morally backward. But I don't want to, I guess I haven't heard his thorough philosophical explanation, so maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, no, I think you must be right. I mean, it's not like in this day and age, it's hard to do the deed but not get the woman pregnant. Like maybe that happens once or whatever. People like have an oops, that whatever. But like, if this dude did not want to be having babies with a bunch of different women, he could still sleep with them and not have the babies. Now, I'm not saying that would be right, by the way. I'm
sure some of it might be a form of entrapment too. Like a lot of questions about what happened with Miss St. Clair, and to what degree were maybe contraceptives described but not implemented. I'm not making an accusation here. I'm saying that is a danger. But if you're a powerful man, it's still on. I know it's hard. I know it's very difficult. I shouldn't say I know it's hard. Contextual or context considered. I know it's very difficult when women are just throwing themselves at you, but that's the point of moral principle. It has to be maintained and exercised when it's difficult, not when it's easy. And so the proper answer is still stay committed to one woman for the sake of your children.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. Like I said, and even without the children, I would not condone that as a Christian. Like, I think that's wrong behavior. But yeah, it's hard to understand how the way he lives his life. I think that, I'm just going to speak for myself personally. I think that Elon Musk was the perfect person for the job, for what he did, and I don't have to agree with any of his personal choices, but he did that with Twitter. He bought Twitter and he got rid of 70% of employees, and the company's still running just like before. So he was able to increase efficiency
in many ways.
Yeah. And I don't know if 70% is exactly accurate, but I remember it was a very high percentage. So the guy has experience with this, with very large organizations. And I think we need to look at these individuals in that way. Like, were they the right person for that specific job? I never even asked myself whether I trust this person generally. Frankly, I don't, but to me, that's besides the point.
Well, that'll do it for tonight. Appreciate it. Just shy of 3 hours, so I nailed it. I was exactly correct. Thank you for taking the tour, especially an extended tour considering the guest situation and I appreciate your help tonight in making a successful show. So thank you for that. Of course, we'll have you back sometime soon. But thanks everybody for tuning in tonight. Very much appreciated. Thanks to our live chatters and super chatters for making the live show a success. If you're listening on demand later, thank you kindly as well for supporting the show. Of course, thanks to Robert for sitting in tonight for that 3-hour tour. Thanks to producer Tim for his continued assistance. If you'd like more to listen to, check out the podcast page of my website, mattchristiansenmedia.com/podcasts. You can get not just the video show there, but the audio show too, if you prefer your audio podcast listening. Speaking of, 2 seasons of Robert's Bible study available on those podcast feeds. So if you want hours and hours of biblical and scriptural analysis from Robert, mattchristiansenmedia.com/podcasts. Anything else show related, mattchristiansenmedia.com is where you find it, or mattis.gay if you prefer brevity. Back on Sunday and Wednesday nights. Hope to see you then. Have a great night and a great week.